It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, January 30th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the latest on the terrible plane crash that took place overnight. An American Airlines jet plunged into the Potomac River after colliding with an Army helicopter. 64 people were aboard, including U.S. and Russian figure skaters returning from a camp in Kansas. Latest updates is that officials believe that no one has survived the midair collision. This is very, very sad, and this is a big deal. This is the main airport that most elected officials use when they fly in and out of Washington, D.C. Lots of military traffic, lots of military bases all around there too. So a very complicated airport as it relates to air traffic. But we're going to give you the latest on all of this as it comes in. There's press conferences taking place right now. We may go to those in a second, but we want to give you the latest updates on this. One of the victims was a Russian skating couple who were world champions in the 90s. They were on that airplane as well. So lots of breaking news to cover. We're going to get to that. Last night, Daniel's Fund, great organization here in Colorado, had a big night as they were honoring some organizations that are doing very important work in our communities. We're going to talk to Sean Duffy here in a bit. We're going to wrap up RFK's hearing and then bring to you live as well Kash, Patel, and Tulsi Gabbard as they kick off their live Senate confirmation hearing committee meetings about 7:30 this morning. So lots of breaking news. We're going to stay on top of all of it. Let's check in first on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 26 degrees, partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Fire command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
It was a huge search and rescue operation last night. Now it's a recovery mission taking place after American Airlines regional jet collided with the military helicopter last night, sending both of them into the Potomac River. Matthew Capucci of the Washington Post has an apartment overlooking Reagan National Airport where the plane was headed and describes what he saw.
Things suddenly got very quiet at first. At this time of night, you typically hear tons of airplanes take off and land, and suddenly things got very quiet, and then it was just sirens nonstop.
The U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter was on a training flight and had 3 crew members on board. There were 64 people aboard the American Airlines flight, which was headed to the airport in Virginia outside D.C. from Wichita.
I'm looking out the window right now, and the entire length of the runway is filled with more emergency crews, police lights, rescue lights than I've ever seen before on both sides of the Potomac River.
And as Jeff just mentioned, U.S. Figure Skating says a group of athletes and coaches were on the flight.
The organization released a statement last night saying a group of young athletes, coaches, and family members were returning from the National Development Camp being held in Wichita, Kansas. The statement said the organization was devastated by the unspeakable tragedy and that it would release more details when available.
And
Mark Mayfield.
And the group included a couple of Russian skaters, as Jeff also mentioned. Flights in and out of Reagan are on hold this morning as the recovery mission continues. There won't be any flights going out or coming into Reagan until at least 9 this morning. New Transportation Secretary Duffy 20 minutes ago.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently.
And here's a husband who was waiting on his wife to land last night.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes.
Can you show us a text message that you got from her?
Landing in 20 minutes. The rest of my text did not get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up.
And
man, that is
heartbreaking.
That video is so hard to see because he's just kind of in shock, right? Like this is something that we all go through in our lives, in the sense of going to pick up somebody at the airport. And I mean, my wife and I were talking about this because half of our family flew out of Reagan in the last week.
Is that right?
Like we had two kids. We had two kids heading there for the National March for Life. I flew out of Reagan last week. So, you know, you're constantly going to the airport. You're picking family members up. You're talking and communicating. She was close enough to the ground to be able to text her husband that they were getting close to landing, or at least using some form of Wi-Fi or something. But
correct.
That poor husband, man, just kind of shell-shocked going, all I can do at this point is hope they pick her up out of the river.
I've only flown in there one time, but there is a lot of traffic. I mean, no question.
Do you have
in New York? Same thing. But yeah, that one's, I mean, there's a lot of traffic.
I mean, Trump even raising lots of questions last night on Truth Social about this, saying the airline was on a perfect and routine line of approach. You hear right there from Sean Duffy that the helicopter was flying, you know, on a regular approach. I did see a tweet from a guy who was a Black Hawk helicopter chief, and he was bringing up the fact that, look, there are moments where, first of all, it's really hard to see lights from aircraft at DCA because of all the cities. Lights around it, right? So you have you have all the buildings, all the high rises. So you have all those lights. You may have police responding to something down in the city. So you have those lights. You got lights everywhere. Sure. So to try to separate a light on an airplane from a light in the city is very difficult. But two, oftentimes he mentions in a Black Hawk helicopter, there are moments where all three people are looking at things. They're doing fuel checks. They're looking at gauges. They may not be looking outside the aircraft, and they could just miss it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today when I was reading this. I mean, everything that's going on in the cockpit. I guess that's what you call it in a helicopter. I have no idea, but this is going to be investigated, and they just talked about, you know, it's going to be the most investigated crash in years, if not ever, one of them. So devastating news to everyone.
The other thing too, when we were there, was the Potomac was completely frozen over, and it was like an ice block. So I think it had warmed up a little bit to where it wasn't quite as cold as it was inauguration week. But if somebody went into that water, you had seconds. You had seconds. There's no way. I mean, they were talking yesterday, like last night, going, well, 30, 40 minutes. And no way, 30 or 40 minutes in that water you could have survived. It was so cold in that city that it's a mere seconds. Do you remember, Blake or Billy, the Florida flight that crashed on the 14th Street Bridge in DC in like in 80s?
Yeah.
And then,
I don't remember it, but I just read about it.
Yeah. And there was a news helicopter that went down to try to help people, and guys running in off the shore to try to help folks because the water was so cold that you just have mere seconds to try to get to people.
It's horrible.
Have you heard the that's unconfirmed so far? Have you guys caught the Saudi connection in the story so far?
No, I haven't heard that at all.
Oh, okay. This shout out to Adam, who's running our video this morning. Did a little bit extra work. Now, again, unconfirmed. I need to outline this again.
Yes.
Unconfirmed. But there are some reports that the Black Hawk helicopter might have been doing a VIP extraction drill because of where it appears. It appears all of a sudden its lights and transponder go on over the area in which a house owned by the Saudi royal family exists in that area. Oddly enough, it is the only street that you cannot see on Google Maps. You can't see that street. It doesn't exist. If you're trying to look at Google Maps, it's there. You can see it. You can see it in other things, that you can see the entrance to the street, but there's nothing on Google Maps that shows you that street exists. And the property, while it's secluded, is owned by the Saudi family. And it is right above that region when the helicopter transponders, the Black Hawk transponders go on and lights and everything. So again, not saying that a member of the Saudi family was on or anything like that on the helicopter, but it definitely could be because they talked about something like it was on a training exercise. So right now, the theory that's being floated, again, only a theory, since we're going to be talking later about RFK Jr. and Kash, Patel, and everybody else, only a theory right now is that the training exercise was a diplomat extraction type of thing, that you've got to get someone important out of an urban area, and this is how you do it. And that's why the helicopter was in that area at that time. Again, totally and completely unconfirmed, but there are people out there that are trying to connect some breadcrumbs. Do with it as you wish and see if that bubbles up later. Don't know. Again, I'm not putting any weight on it. Yes, no weight on it. No, just a point of information, and let's just observe and see what happens.
Yeah, and based on DJT's post, I mean, I'm sure all these questions will arise, and they probably know a lot more than we do at this point, but we'll stay on top of it this morning. So, wow, what a morning, and devastating news on the East Coast. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says he's open to having a productive conversation with Congress about federal immigration reform. Johnston was asked to testify before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee earlier this week. The committee is opening an investigation into sanctuary cities and wants the mayors of Denver, Chicago, Boston, and New York City to testify. Johnston tells Denver 7 that he's having conversations with the committee and could testify if it would be beneficial for the city. DJT signed another executive order, this one calling for the preparation of a facility at Guantanamo Bay to be used for deported illegal aliens. The order will have the Department of Defense and Homeland Security prepare a 30,000 migrant facility at the prison site in Cuba. All right, Liz Warren Pocahontas continued to grill RFK Jr. in his first HHS confirmation hearing on Wednesday. Here she is.
No one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule.
I think he did very well yesterday, Liz Warren.
I did too.
Yeah, I think all these people are trying to run and hide because they're in with big pharma.
Yeah, I think he lied. That's okay. He
That's
sat
fine.
there over and over and over again, lied about positions he took, things he said, things that were a timeline. Yeah, but again, that's what we do now when we're confirming people on both sides. They sit there and they lie and they tell you what they think that you want to hear, and then we'll see what happens once he gets confirmed. But he gave enough plausible deniability for Republicans to sign up and vote for a conspiracy theorist that's been against the majority of health and is also at one point pro-life. So, yep, great.
Well,
this is a great
I'm a
timeline.
conspiracy theorist. I thought this was the best part here.
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
That is a pejorative, Senator, that's applied to me, mainly to keep me from asking difficult questions of powerful interests. I was told that I was a conspiracy theorist That label was applied to me because I said that the vaccines, the COVID vaccine, didn't prevent transmission and it wouldn't prevent infection, when the government was telling people, Americans, that it would. I was saying that because I was looking at the monkey studies in May of 2020. I was called a conspiracy. Now everybody admits it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said red dye caused cancer. And now FDA has acknowledged that and banned it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said fluoride lowered IQ. Last week, JAMA published a meta-review of 87 studies saying that there's a direct inverse correlation between IQ loss.
All right. So I'm going to assume
I could go on for about a week.
So is there any one of them that you can say, you got me? That really was a conspiracy theory? Or are you in a position?
Not yet. Not yet. I could go on for a week.
That's a great example, and I'm glad that you brought that out there because he lies inside of that answer. He lies about his statements about COVID. Yes, he did question the vaccine, but he also said that it was engineered to avoid Jewish people and Chinese people. He said that. Red dye. The red dye, not a conspiracy theory. That's been around since the 90s. That was found to cause cancer in the 90s. But the U.S. government, not going along with other governments around the world, decided not to ban it because giant piles of money seem to have a really, really big voice. And giant piles of money get things done. And giant piles of money kept the red dye from being, But again, let's talk about the things that he does believe in. He thinks that 5G and Wi-Fi cause cancer. Thinks that Lyme disease is a bioweapon. Thinks the 2004 presidential election was stolen. AIDS was bioengineered. Okay, those are all things that he went and he's advocated and believed for. But if he wants to go on a list of conspiracy theories, okay, moon landing, Princess Diana's murder. We can go to 9/11 being a false flag, Paul McCartney's death, Satan music, backward masking, chemtrails, a whole bunch of Obama stuff, birds aren't real, flat earth, lizard people in government, DIA, part of the Illuminati or lizard people, Nazis coming from Middle Earth, NBA draft is fixed, rap music push for prison. No, I'm just saying that he was talking about conspiracy theories. I'm just listing conspiracy theories. I'm wondering how many of those he believes are true, because he says there are a lot of conspiracy theories that he believes are true. He didn't say those are true, but he did say that COVID was bioengineered to avoid Jewish people and Chinese people. He did say that 5G causes cancer. He did say that Lyme disease was a bioengineered weapon. He did say that health officials are hiding the natural holistic cures. He did say that AIDS was also bioengineered. There's a list of things that he has bought into that he says. So he, again, is playing fast and loose. Even in his answer there, the thing about the red dye, not a conspiracy theory. That was more based on the fact that we didn't want to make the movement. That's been known since the 90s. It was not a conspiracy theory. He thinks vaccines cause autism. That's not true. He's said that over and over and over. Not true. And then when he talks about the COVID thing, he misrepresents his statement that he made. He plays on the one part that is true, but ignores the part that's complete and total BS. Again, right there. Beautiful example. And I thank you for playing it because it shows liar. But again, you can vote for him if you want. I'm not making the judgment.
I think he came across as somebody who questions a lot of the systems that are currently making us less healthy. And I think the American people want somebody like that in there.
What answer did he come to when he was asking questions? What answers did he come to? I outlined conspiracy theories that he is advocating for.
All those things that he just talked about right there. The red dye, number 3.
Yeah, and the Jewish and Chinese thing. He's questioning that.
He has posted that he's never, ever, these are exact words, I've never, ever suggested that the COVID-19 virus was targeted to spare Jews. I do not believe.
We have quotes
and never
from him.
Implied that the ethnic effect was deliberately engineered.
Yes, we have quotes from him, and it was outlined yesterday.
I just read a quote from him.
I know. He's lying. That's it. Yes, we have quotes previously.
Why do you believe one quote, not the other one?
Because the one happens when he's out there advocating to be the pro-anti-vax guy, and now he wants a job. That's not that unusual. You don't think
he doesn't need a job, though.
No.
I mean, I truly believe
Blake,
he's genuine, and he wants the American people to be healthier. I believe that.
Wrong verb. I didn't say need. Want. Want is different than need. He wants this job. Yes. And so he's going to lie. You're going to tell me that you don't believe that a Democrat that would be put in the same position that desperately wants the job will come in front of Congress and lie through their teeth in order to make sure they give themselves enough cover in order to get the job? Yes. I would believe that a Democrat nominee would do that. I also believe that a GOP nominee would do that. So I think it is fair to take a look at their past behavior and past statements and see what happens now.
During a private dinner in New York City, he raised concerns about the fact that it seems like COVID targets particular ethnic groups differently.
It's exactly what I said. Thank you. Appreciate it.
But that's different than saying that it was engineered.
No, but if you listen to him, he talks about, I cited this study that said that. And he was citing it as
doesn't say anything in here about a study or a citation.
No,
he says
he said that yesterday during the questioning. When asked about this, he cited, I was just citing this study that said that. But he was citing the study as proof positive that we need to question it because what we're not being told is the truth. He cited that as if it was uncovering the truth inside of the conversation.
That's what I was pointing out, is that he's a guy that seems to ask a lot of questions and is willing to, explore these things.
Yeah, exactly. But doesn't the answers that he comes to matter? I mean, I don't care if he goes around asking questions. Scientists ask questions all the time. However, there is a rigorous plan that they go through in order to verify whether or not those questions are true. Going around and saying, you can't indict me because I'm just asking questions. I don't know if the moon is real. I don't know if birds are real. I'm just asking, are birds real? That's the argument you're making. You're just saying that because you ask questions, it absolves you from any responsibility for those conclusions. These are conclusions that he has said. These are conclusions that he has said that buy into his belief system. Yes. Lyme disease is a bioengineered.
I see it totally differently.
I know you do because you want. I know. I get it because you want him in the job as a disruptor. That's fine. Vote for and confirm whoever you want. But we need to be honest about who the person is. I don't understand why both can't be true. You want that guy in the job. You want him to do it. Great, fine. But at least embrace the stuff that he said, and that's okay.
Because I think it's done in an effort to disparage him. The stuff that the Democrats brought up is an effort to make him look like a total whack job on all these types of things. And the point being, from my perspective, and I think a lot of Americans who saw that yesterday, was he came across as a guy who's going to challenge a lot of these existing regimes. And we have a very serious health problem in America, and these things need to be questioned.
He came to the conclusion that vaccines cause autism, despite all the science. How good is his intellectual rigor and when he asks questions? Doesn't the answers matter? I don't care if he's asking questions, as long as you come to the correct answer, as long as you follow information, and he doesn't. So he can ask all the questions he wants, but what we see is he comes to the wrong conclusions. Again, you want that? That's fine. But go for it. But embrace it. I'm not arguing with it.
You're painting him with a broad brush here. And I've seen this from the progressive left on him and a lot of stuff. I read through the whole Samoa issue. The way the media portrayed that was exactly wrong. And what I heard from him yesterday was an important update, but CBS News
he lied yesterday about it.
No, CBS News did an updated deep dive on this, and it tracks more with what he said yesterday.
He lied about it.
No.
Yes, he did. He sent a 4-page letter talking about why the vaccines were bad. He showed up on the island talking about the vaccines being bad. His company came there telling people the vaccines were bad. He's incorrect. He can ask questions about it, but his conclusions are wrong.
That is a misrepresentation of what happened there.
No, it's not.
Samoa talked about how it was a much bigger issue with vaccine hesitancy than just RFK showing up there. And when he showed up, there was already deep concerns. You already had the people have died. And it was a much bigger issue than just RFK Jr.
And he's asking questions. And what position did he take? What was his position on the vaccines, the measles vaccines in Samoa when he showed up? Regardless of when, what was his position?
I'll have to look it up here.
They don't work.
No, that was not right.
Yes, he sent a 4-page letter to the ruler of Samoa saying they don't work. Yes, he said they don't work. His conclusion was wrong. I don't care about the timeline. I understand that there was vaccine hesitancy inside Samoa. And what did he do? Made it worse.
Big time.
And that's the guy that you want.
Vaccine hesitancy in this. So
and he made it worse. And then you're going to put him in charge of health. Again, if you want that, just say, I want the disruptor. I want this. I don't care. And I think that he's changed. Fine. I don't care. I'm just asking us to be honest about what he said. Vote for whoever you want. They can confirm Sonic the Hedgehog to be Secretary of Transportation for all I care. I don't care, because both sides play this kind of gotcha game, but both sides also are intellectually honest about who they're going to nominate. This is who he is. He's been this for decades. Fine. He thinks vaccines cause autism. He thinks Lyme disease is a bioengineered weapon. Fine. You want to put him there? Good. Go for it. It's your choice, your cabinet. You have the votes.
Again,
do it.
I think
don't
this
care.
is an effort to disparage a guy that asks serious questions, that wants to generally make America healthy again. And it's misrepresented in a lot of these cases. And I don't think it's fair to him. I think he did a fine job yesterday, and I think he's going to do a great job as HHS secretary.
A lot of people are asking fair questions that they said about the 2020 election. How'd that turn out? Those were all fair questions. Did they come to the right conclusion? That's the issue. Conclusions matter. Conclusions matter.
About 2020?
Yes.
You are now talking about the election?
Yeah. Here's the idea. What I'm doing is the premise. You're saying it's okay that he asks questions. You're ignoring. Yeah.
America is suffering from really serious health issues.
Yes.
When you look at obesity, when you look at mental health issues, when you look at all of that stuff, the system that is set up is harming Americans.
Yeah, and he believes part of that is the vaccine schedule. He believes that part of the vaccine schedule.
He just said that he has no problem with the child vaccination schedule.
That's weird. That's weird. Why the change? Did he outline why it changed? Because that's not what he said in the past. It's not what he's been saying for decades.
Why do you totally discount? Of course, what he was doing yesterday was lying, but then what he said before was what he really believes.
Okay, so when was he a liar? When was he a liar? When he said it before or when he said it now?
Or maybe he changed his mind.
He didn't say that. He never said, I changed my mind on this. He said, this is what I believe. He didn't talk about in the
midst of that hearing yesterday?
Yeah. How hard is it to say, I changed my mind on that? I believe this. That's an extra like 4
just
words.
Say, I believe in this.
But that's an extra 4 words that create context. He didn't. So again, he has to be lying at one point or the other, and that's fine. Choose whoever you want. I don't care. Pick whoever you want. You have the power. You have the votes. That's your prerogative. All I'm saying is we need to be intellectually honest. You can have people asking questions. People ask questions about whether or not the moon landing was real, whether or not Paul McCartney died. People ask questions. What are the conclusions they come to? Conclusions matter. Alex Jones asked questions. His conclusions are BS.
And all of that, it's an effort to disparage him. You're throwing him in with the moon landing people. You're throwing him with Alex Jones.
I'm using an example.
Poisoning the well.
I'm not. No, I'm not. Here's the idea. I'm not poisoning the well. I am not. That is a logical fallacy that talks about an ad hominem attack. I'm not. I'm talking about the process. You're saying it's okay to ask questions. I'm saying, yes, ask questions, but the conclusions you come to matter. And that's where you're discounting this entire conversation. I'm not poisoning the well. I'm talking about the framework that you set up. Is it okay to ask questions? Yes. Do the conclusions matter? Yes. What are the conclusions that he has come to over the course of his lifetime so far? Many times he's been wrong. Sometimes he's been right. Many times he's been wrong. Again, honesty. That's fine. Choose him. You want him to be the National Health Secretary? Fine. Go right ahead. Let him run NHS. Fine. Go right ahead. Health and Human Resources. Go right ahead. That's fine. I don't care. I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, what are you doing destroying the country? I'm not that person. But I'm saying, understand who you're nominating. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. But don't pretend he's something he's not.
I think it's a huge upgrade from the former. too. All right.
Again, that's fine. You guys think it's a huge upgrade?
Yes.
Go right ahead. Vote for him. Support him.
I
That's
do.
Fine. Go
I
right
think
ahead.
he wants to make America healthy again. I think he's the right guy for it.
If you think so,
I think
go
he's
right
very
ahead.
likable.
I will support you.
I think he cares.
110%.
I think he loves the country. I think we'll be healthier because he'll be in that position. God willing. News brought to you by Lara Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at LaraFireplacePatio.com. 23 in Centennial, 24 in Arvada, 26 in Denver. It's Thursday. Jeff and Billy continue. Let's go, RFK Jr. Let's go. MAGA.
Denver is right on the edge of a storm system over east central Colorado. There will be a chance of snow showers today. Temperatures making the 40s. The snow showers will be heavier and accumulations more likely east along 70 out towards Lyman on the way to Burlington. That's where the snow will be more widespread. Temperatures tonight down into the mid-20s as the storm moves out, skies clearing, then mild and dry Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with temperatures warming back to the 50s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center. Denver is right on the edge of a storm system over east central Colorado. There will be a chance of snow showers today. Temperatures making the 40s. The snow showers will be heavier and accumulations more likely east.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill show. Bill and I go back and forth. The last 2 days have been particularly spicy, and we'll continue with the RFK debate. And while we talk into a can, there's actually people out there making a difference in the community and doing great work. Last night, got a chance to hang out with the good folks over at the Daniels Fund as they awarded $200,000 to 2 Denver Metro nonprofits during their Salute to Excellence event. Look, the Daniels Fund highlights and supports lots of organizations all throughout the Western United States. Sending many kids to college. You probably heard of them, but last night they particularly highlighted 3 organizations: Child Development Center of Natrona County, that's up in Wyoming, Cross Purpose, and Teaching the Autism Community Trades. And to give us some insight into what these great organizations are doing and what Daniels Fund is doing to make our communities better is Sean Duffy. Sounds like it might be the Sean Duffy who's the Secretary of Transportation. He's a little busy today. This Sean Duffy, good friend of the show, is the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Daniels Fund. Good morning, Sean. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill show.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. Yeah, I'm the good-looking Sean Duffy, not that the other guy. So
I can attest to that. You are very good looking. Yeah. Sean, I mean, last night was magical, and in the midst of all the debates, it's great to take time to recognize organizations that are really making a difference in our community. Talk to us about what happened last night.
Thanks, Bill, Jeff, and thanks for being there last night. It was great to see you. The Daniels Fund was created by a guy named Bill Daniels, who was the father of cable television, and he loved the country. He was a veteran, and he loved the free enterprise system. He loved what the possibilities for people to flourish if you give them a hand. Sometimes a hand up, not a hand out. And so last night, the Daniels Fund took the opportunity to recognize 3 organizations. You mentioned them. And the winner up in Wyoming got $250,000 in a special grant. 2 of the organizations here in the Denver area that you mentioned are doing amazing work. I mean, Cross Purpose, for example, which is in the Denver area, helps people go from generational poverty to generational wealth in the private sector. And so we saw stories of people impacted by what they do to change people's lives. And the same with Teaching the Autism Community Trades. They're taking people who are struggling, including the instructor in the group, and they're teaching them the trades they can to be chefs, to repair cars, to weld. And so the point is, there's a great opportunity to help people develop independent, flourishing lives, just the way that Bill Daniels, went from poverty into success, amazing success, changed the world, right? He believed that we could do that with individuals. And so 25 years after his death, it still lives on through the Daniels Fund and what we do.
And lives on and thrives. We're talking with Sean Duffy, Senior Vice President of Communications for the Daniels Fund. And you guys, through the Daniels Fund, have given out $1.2 billion to local charities in the last 25 years. Is that right?
Yeah, Bill Daniels started the fund with $1 billion. We were able to, through very amazing stewardship of those dollars, give out $1.2 billion over the course of 25 years, and the lives that have been changed, literally millions of lives, Jeff. And it's the stories are what's cool about it. You saw on the videos, and they're on our website at danielsfund.org. You can see how they just literally transform people's lives. Story of one woman who said, I was living in generational poverty, and I spent time with Cross Purpose, and now I'm doing quite well. And so we believe you don't need solely a government reaction and a government program to try to fix things. That individual nonprofits, last year our medal winner, the Medal of Excellence winner was Step Denver, an organization I know
great
this audience
friends of the show. Yeah,
absolutely. And again, they're an example that you can talk about the homeless problem, you can try to just shove away the homeless problem, or you can fix it one life at a time. And so that's what we were celebrating last night, our Salute to Excellence. And it was 600 people, a lot of whom are our grantees, were there to celebrate, but also encourage people to find nonprofits in their community, get involved. There's lots you can do to help. Roll up your sleeves and lend a hand. And it's really what the country's all about.
Talking with Sean Duffy. He is the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Daniels Fund. So, Sean, let's talk about the winner last night, the Child Development Center of Natrona County. Who are they? What do they do? And why were they selected by the Daniels Fund to receive their special award?
Yeah, I warned everybody before the video to get your tissues out, because it is just an amazing organization up there in Natrona County. They serve hundreds and hundreds of kids with developmental disabilities. Bill Daniels' sister had developmental disabilities, and so that's one of our key funding areas. And up there, we come alongside this organization. The story they shared was a young boy, was born with an extremely rare genetic problem. Couldn't walk, couldn't use his hands. And this organization, day by day, including inventing ways for him to use his hands, helped transform him. And we heard from his parents about how they've seen the miracle of this child suddenly beginning to walk, to use his hands to draw. And it just was an amazing way in which these local organizations up in local communities can literally change the future of little kids who, without these organizations, who knows where this kid would be. And it's people loving on them one kid at a time. And the people up there, as you saw, Jeff, are just amazingly dynamic. They're passionate. And it's what, as I said, it's what I think the country's all about. One community at a time, one family at a time, one kid at a time. You really can make a difference in these problems that a lot of people think maybe we can't solve.
Talking to Sean Duffy, is the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Daniels Fund on an incredible evening where the Daniels Fund is supporting and awarding 3 particular local charities. Now, the Daniels Fund works in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming. They provide grant programs, scholarship programs. Over $1.2 billion in grants and scholarships have been given through its 25-year history. They are one of the most influential and impactful organizations we have in the Western United States. If people wanted to connect with the Daniels Fund, maybe learn more about the scholarships that you provide, how can they do that, Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, danielsfund.org has just a wealth of information about the fund, about Bill Daniels. A lot of people don't know his influence in Colorado and around the West and around the world. But particularly, you mentioned the scholars. We give kids a free ride into college. They might never have been in college, and they're kids whose values are really aligned with what Bill Daniels would like, values of patriotism, belief in free enterprise, those sorts of things. And so there's a lot of exciting opportunities. There's also a National Civics Bee where kids are learning about the country, how the country works, and how to love their country. So there's lots of stuff going on through the Daniels Fund, and we'd love people to get involved and just see how you can really change your community one life at a time.
Sean Duffy, Senior Vice President of Communications for the Daniels Fund. Thank you so much for taking time to join us, especially after a late night, following the Daniels Fund Medal of Excellence Award, which took place. That was just fantastic to see people honored for doing work one life at a time to make our communities better. And the Daniels Fund did a great job last night. Sean, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good day.
Jeff. Thanks, Bill.
All right, coming up next, we'll continue with the levity, and then the 7 o'clock hour, Bill and I will jump back into RFK. But you choose the news. Coming up, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill show. Text messages are hot, and we're going to get to the RFK confirmation hearing that took place yesterday. Where do you land on him? Suzanne saying, we're in a cult. MAGAs are cults. They don't listen to reason anymore. My perspective, the left continues to Kavanaugh people, but we'll get all to that in a second. Let's check in. Not check in. Let's take a moment for some levity and do You Choose the News.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we get to make more questionable decisions than just allowing me control over a microphone. It's something we call You Choose the News, America's favorite fake radio news game show. I've spent moments this morning scouring the interwebs for really dumb stories about us humans, giving them more ridiculous headlines so we can play this fake radio news game show. Why do we do this at this hour? Because nobody in charge has any idea we're doing this. A friend of the show suggested yesterday, you should do this in the 8 o'clock hour. No, we should not. Because then those people in charge that make the decisions will know we are doing this. Super bad idea. That's why it happens right now. Here we go. Blake Olson joining us from the newsroom. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, your headlines. Attack of the French taunter. Headline number 1. Headline number 2, Sammy Hagar's mom. Headline number 3, immigrant crime warning. And headline number 4, no honor among thieves. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Let's do Sammy Hagar's mom.
Yeah, Sammy Hagar's mom. Recently this year on I-84, and I'm sorry, this was just actually last week, looking at the timeline here. Last week on Interstate 84 near Baker City, a 94-year-old Texas woman was pulled over. She was cited for failing to secure a child passenger in the vehicle, for failing to yield to an emergency vehicle. Oh, yeah, and she was also doing 106 miles per hour. She couldn't drive 55. Yes. The 94-year-old Texas woman was doing 106.
Wow.
Damn. I mean, props, but a little scary.
You only got so much time left.
I know.
Why are you going to waste it going slow?
I think she's giving me a goal. I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. Yeah. I'm like, wow. I'm seriously, Grandma, nicely done. You know, the little lady from Pasadena kind of thing. I mean, she is okay. All right. Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Attack of the French taunter, immigrant crime warning, or no honor among thieves?
Attack of the French taunter.
Yeah, Attack of the French taunter. Monty Python fans will enjoy this one. A judge has been citing Rhiannon Evans. She's believed to be the first person ever to face charges for a certain cyber crime. Yes, like the French taunter, she was farting in someone's general direction and doing it aggressively. Yes, basically she was breaking wind to her boyfriend's ex, and she was filming herself doing it. What she would do is she would start the video, and then she would reach the camera over near her nether regions, and then on camera, and then send the videos to the woman.
Wow.
Yes. At times they could see her face and things like that. I'm just saying, like, if
how old was she? Do we know
25,
how old she?
So of course it explains a lot. But the other part is this. I'm sorry, if you come up to me and go, I'm like, okay, you're just weird. I mean, the whole issue is if you're going to aggressively fart near me, it's the smell. It's what you've been eating. It's like how much cabbage you put in your system. I mean, there are things here, people.
I would like to point out we do have a comment from 8512 that says this segment is always the most cheesy and amateurish and childish, and I think we just demonstrated.
Of course it is.
Ding.
Yes. Don't you listen to the introduction? That's exactly what we're doing. Yes, we are being cheesy and childish, and we are wasting valuable airtime.
And we become middle school seventh graders all over again.
Absolutely. Yes. Here's the point. What's the point in growing up if you're not allowed to act a little childish from time to time? We allow you to do that daily with us. Yeah, absolutely. This is completely immature. 110%. Thank you for understanding what we're doing. All righty, Jeff, your choice, sir. Immigrant crime warning or no honor among thieves?
Immigrant crime warning.
Yes,
by Justin.
Maryland National Capital Park Police are warning people about immigrant crime. I mean, these are dangerous. These people can kill you. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I said people. That's not true. They're alligators and crocodiles. Yes, up and around the parks inside of Maryland, signs have been posted that said, do not disturb the alligators. The alligators are sleeping. This time of the year, alligators are in Burmation, a reptile version of hibernation. The problem is it's too cold in Maryland for alligators.
I was going to say,
there are no alligators. Yeah, there are no alligators. So they came out and they said, yeah, those signs are a prank. No alligators, people. Yeah, so don't be afraid of the immigrants. It's okay. Don't be afraid. All righty, that's the end of You Choose the News and our childish frivolities.
8875 saying I got pink eye through the speaker on this last story. All right.
You're welcome.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. President Donald Trump making a big announcement while at the signing ceremony for the Laken Riley Act, saying that he's ordering the DOD and the DHS to prepare a facility that will hold tens of thousands of the most violent and dangerous illegal migrants who are currently in the United States. Listen.
Signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately.
Security agents escorted the Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Agriculture out of her office after she refused to leave after being fired by the Trump administration. Phyllis Fong had earlier told colleagues that she planned to stay even after she was terminated, saying she didn't believe the administration had followed proper protocols. The White House defended the firing of Fong and the other inspectors general, saying, quote, these rogue partisan bureaucrats have been relieved of their duties in order to make room for qualified individuals who will uphold the rule of law and protect democracy. Fong was among 17 IGs fired by Trump on Friday. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, January 30th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We've got a lot to cover, including breaking news on this terrible plane crash that took place late last night. If you missed it, there are no survivors from the D.C. plane crash. Officials believe that all passengers and crew aboard an American Eagle Flight 5342, which collided midair Wednesday evening with an Army Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport, were killed and are pivoting search and rescue teams to recovery operations at this point. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from the accident, D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly said Thursday at a news conference, adding the rescue teams have recovered 27 bodies from the plane and one body from the helicopter. The PSA Airlines operated American Airlines aircraft was flying from Wichita to National Airport with 60 passengers and 4 crew members, and the helicopter was on a training flight with 3 service members aboard. This took place right outside Reagan. The plane was on approach. You can see some of the videos if you go to X. There was a webcam from the Kennedy Center that picked up the moment of the collision. Washington Post reporting that a procedural breakdown was likely behind the crash, while the cause of the collision between the American Airlines passenger jet and the Army Black Hawk helicopter remained unknown. An aviation expert said that the breakdown in procedure was almost certainly behind it. Guy Grattan, an associate professor of aviation and environment at Britain's Cranfield University, told the Washington Post that while he did not want to speculate, it's clear two aircraft were in the same place at the same time and they shouldn't have been. Really, it's almost certainly some form of procedural breakdown. In any airspace where there are very strict procedures to ensure that aircraft are never in the same place at the same time, they are a mixture of technology and visual rules following, and they would work because accidents like this are thankfully incredibly rare. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said Thursday morning news briefings that the flight paths of the passenger plane and the military helicopter are not unusual in the DC airspace, and both aircraft were in communication with towers. Something went wrong here. I look forward to the time and point when we can give you the absolute information, he said, adding, do I think this was preventable? Absolutely. So some of the folks on that plane were figure skaters, both Russian and American figure skaters that were returning from a training that was taking place in Wichita, Kansas. So terrible. We're going to continue to follow this. Blake is going to have updates throughout the show on this. And then in about 25 minutes, Kash Patel's hearing is going to kick off before the Senate Confirmation Committee. We're going to cover that as well as Tulsi Gabbard's this morning. So we'll have live coverage of those hearings as well. Lots of breaking news. You're going to want to stick with us throughout the entirety of the morning. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Billy. Huge day, as just mentioned. 31 degrees and a little snow in Denver, expecting a high of 44. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Fire Command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
No survivors expected to be found in the crash involving American Airlines jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter near D.C. The crash happened last night as the regional jet was approaching Reagan National Airport. Dozens of bodies have been pulled from the wreckage. It was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members on the flight from Wichita. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently.
Investigators from the NTSB are already helping with the response to last night's crash. The agency announced on social media that it had dispatched on Go team of investigators to begin looking into the crash. A Washington Post reporter lives near the airport.
Things suddenly got very quiet at first. At this time of night, you typically hear tons of airplanes take off and land, and suddenly things got very quiet, and then it was just sirens nonstop.
And as Jeff just talked about, U.S. figure skating says a group of athletes and coaches were on that flight. The organization released a statement saying that a group of young athletes, coaches, and family members were returning from the National Developmental Camp in Wichita. Also on board were former Russian world champion skaters Evgeny Shishkova and Vadim Namov. One husband was waiting for his wife and heartbreaking.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes.
Can you show us a text message that you got from her?
Landing in 20 minutes. The rest of my text did not get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up.
DJT says the crash looks like it should have been prevented. In a post on Truth Social last night, Trump said the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. He questioned why the Army Black Hawk helicopter didn't see the plane, adding it was a clear night and the lights on the plane were blazing. Today and this morning, in a few minutes within the hour, Kash Patel will go before the senators after he was selected to lead the FBI. Tulsi Gabbard will also be grilled in her effort to become director of national intelligence. And it's day 2 for RFK Jr., who's already faced tough questions Wednesday in his bid to become Secretary of Health and Human Services. Denver's Mayor Mike Johnston says he's open to having a productive conversation with Congress about federal immigration reform. Yeah, sure. Johnston was asked to testify before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee earlier this week. The committee is opening an investigation into sanctuary cities and wants the mayors of Denver, Chicago, Boston, and New York City to testify, Jeff.
So I wish I had some audio that was like, roll back, roll back. Roll back. Here's a guy that's desperately trying to figure a way out of a corner he put himself in. So let's go back here. The city of Denver puts up a giant "We Heart Immigrants" sign, right? It brings in 40,000 illegal immigrants. It provides debit cards, lawyers, job training, everything for them to the tune of over $100 million. Okay. Then he puffs himself up when Donald Trump gets elected and he goes, if Donald Trump brings federal immigration enforcement to this city, I'm going to send Denver police to the county line. This is going to be a Tiananmen Square moment. and then I guarantee you, because his wife's a prosecutor, the dude went home that night and his wife went, honey, I love you. I don't want you to end up in jail. All right. This is what's called an insurrection. Right. You can't just order police to fight federal immigration officials. And ever since then, this dude has been walking it back, and now he's, I can't wait to work with Congress to figure.
Yeah, imagine that. Come on. He's not a politician, is he? Right. I want him there so badly.
Get the popcorn, Blake.
I cannot wait. That is going to be must-see TV, no doubt. The Aurora PD says 2 suspects are in custody after a pursuit and crash Wednesday afternoon. Investigators say gunshots were exchanged between the 2 vehicles around noon in the area of East 11th Avenue in Jamaica. Officers pursued one of the vehicles until it crashed into another car at the intersection of Pena and Green Valley Ranch Boulevards. The 2 suspects in the vehicle were arrested for outstanding warrants and are likely to face other charges. 28 in Littleton, 29 in Lakewood, 31 in Denver. It is Thursday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Denver is right on the edge of a storm system over east central Colorado. There will be a chance of snow showers today. Temperatures making the 40s. The snow showers will be heavier and accumulations more likely east along 70 out towards Lyman on the way to Burlington. That's where the snow will be more widespread. Temperatures tonight down into the mid-20s as the storm moves out, skies clearing, then mild and dry Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with temperatures warming back to the 50s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So it's busy. We're going to continue to give you any updates as they come in with regards to the midair collision that took place yesterday at Reagan. I've probably flown into Reagan more than any other airport out there besides Denver, returning home. A lot of work trips out there, lived in Virginia for 6 years. It's a complicated airport because it's small and there's a lot of traffic that takes place there. So it's out in a corner, and it's the easiest access to Washington, D.C. Dulles is a good 45 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. So that's where all the international flights, the big planes, take off of. But if you're just heading into D.C. for work, which is most members of Congress, they're landing at DCA. So you can have a lot of focus on this, and we'll continue to update. Bill, have you ever flown into DCA before?
No, never have. I've been to Dulles, but not DCA. No.
I remember we went and saw Brian Regan, the comedian, one time, and
cool.
he
Okay.
covered this pretty well. He goes, that's an interesting airport. It's like landing a lawn dart. Just zip, like there's not big runways. You just come right in. So, and then you have all the DC, you have the air traffic that takes place around there with the president coming in and out on Marine One and, going over to Andrews Air Force Base. So it's a very busy place, but this is going to be a big deal. You're going to get a lot of eyes on this one because when our nation's leaders rely on Reagan to fly in every single day, I saw Eric Swalwell say he had landed 5 minutes before this crash took place.
Yeah.
So
and the other problem that, again, game planning things is, okay, the terrorists have done the airplane trick into buildings. That's not going to really fly anymore based on, and pun intended, based on some of the security measures we have in there. They haven't done the helicopter trick, meaning that if
like
you
rent
know
a helicopter or something?
Yeah, and so meaning
Interesting.
if you know when a particular plane is scheduled to land, or you have, you can get the transponder data, okay, just helicopter right in front of the plane. The plane's not going to be able to do much. The helicopter is going to be more maneuverable. So if you're trying to take out a particular group of Congress people or someone else that is a government official, here's a helicopter trick. And then again, this is a training exercise, what we're hearing from the military, but this type of thing can spawn other ideas and go, oh, we can't do the plane thing anymore.
terrible.
But gosh, look how easy it would be for us in theory. Again, it would take a little more planning. You can't just take some flight classes. You would have to, one, get access to the transponders. Not necessarily that difficult, especially if you put someone or a fake ticket on that plane. Sometimes you get access to some transponders if it is a commercial flight. If it's not, a little more difficult. But then you just have to have access to the helicopter transponder and be able to turn it off for a while. That's it. It's all you'd have to do. And you only would need about 10 minutes of that transponder not being active to really make your helicopter a dangerous weapon. So, yeah, this is going to be investigated a lot, because how do you stop this? Because this could spawn a lot of ideas for a lot of really, really evil people. Yeah.
And Reagan's a funny little airport in the sense that you have one terminal that's really nice and updated, and that's where all like United and American and all those fly out. But I fly Frontier. We're literally in a terminal that I think was built in the 40s.
Now, our audience can make their own Reagan jokes about that as well there, just because the 80s. You live in the 80s, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think the terminal was built during then, and
Oh,
it's
sure.
tiny over there on
Yeah.
Terminal A. But half my family flew out of this last week.
Jeez, that is spooky.
It's heartbreaking. So we'll give you the latest on this. All right. Yesterday, Robert F. Kennedy before a Senate confirmation committee. And as you can imagine, the headlines reflect political preference.
Yeah.
So New York Times basically saying that Robert F. Kennedy relied upon conspiracy theories. He changed his mind. He lied, cannot escape his shifting statements, all that. And then Fox News, Dems look unhinged. Conservatives rally around RFK Jr.'s masterclass confirmation hearing performance. I'm not sure I'd put it in the masterclass because I've actually watched confirmation hearings, and I want to go back to Scalia's. All right. That's mastercraft.
Yeah, Scalia's was good.
He sat there and smoked a pipe.
Yeah.
And
he was
just
really good.
joked back and forth with the senators the whole time. It was like, I'm way smarter than you are, and we'll have some fun here. So don't even try to bring anything. And he just, that's masterclass. RFK, good. I definitely think he made it through. I don't think you're going to really have any Republicans. I would be maybe Murkowski, just because it seems like she just likes to vote against Republicans on a regular basis. But I don't think this is going to be the Pete Hegseth 50-50 split. I think it'll go through.
I think it'll be closer than we think it will be, but I think he gets through. But again, Donald Trump has the votes. So you have every right as the GOP to vote in who you want because you have the votes. Again, as I said in the first hour, confirm Sonic the Hedgehog for transportation secretary if you want. That's fine. You can instead of RFK, you can confirm Pac-Man. He likes to eat a lot of stuff. Why not? For the same position. Why not? Again, whoever you want, because you have the votes. You have the power. You have the ability. Yeah.
I saw, and I continue to see with a lot of these confirmation hearings, the Brett Kavanaugh Chicken Little strategy of basically running around going, the sky is falling. And when I've actually sat down to look at the critiques of Robert F. Kennedy, did he get some stuff wrong? Yeah, probably the autism being caused by vaccines. Yeah, that's wrong. But it's always tend to be a lot more nuanced than the way that progressives make out Robert F. Kennedy to be. The Samoa issue is more nuanced. The concern about autism, Robert F. Kennedy seems to be far more concerned about the fact that there's just a huge skyrocketing diagnosis of autism taking place out there. Did he get the vaccines contribute to it wrong? Yeah, probably. But I appreciate the fact that he's deeply concerned about this. And so when I've gone to look actually at these issues that the left is bringing up, critiquing Robert F. Kennedy, it seems to be a lot more nuanced than they're making it out to be. So you got this kind of Chicken Little side of it. But then also, man, hell hath no fury like a Democrat for Robert F. Kennedy, who has left the Democrat Party. I mean, Ted Kennedy kills a woman in a car accident, leaves her there to die, and Democrats will cover that all up. But if you're Robert F. Kennedy and you switch over and join a Republican administration, man, the Democrats will turn on the heat and go right after you. So that's what I saw yesterday.
I think it's just partisan. And I think that's where we are. That we have adopted our politics like our sports teams. And so if you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, then everybody else that doesn't like your Kansas City Chiefs and don't think they're the dominant team in the NFL are a hater. If you're an Eagles fan, then you think that everybody isn't recognizing the greatness that you see inside of the green and silver. So that's what we've become. Well, we've become sports fans for our politicians. We fail to, I won't say fail. We choose to ignore their failures and weaknesses. And that's on both sides. That happens on both sides. And the biggest example that I can bring to the table right now is Joe Biden's senior moments during the last term, especially the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. There were a lot of Democrats walking around carrying water for him and covering for him. And that was purely based on politics, not based on truth, based on politics. And this part of the RFK thing, yes, is based on politics, but I appreciated that with RFK Jr., they were at least holding him accountable, not based on things like, and I don't agree that that's necessarily a Kavanaugh thing. I understand the idea. You weren't saying they were Kavanaughing him. You were saying that it's become like Kavanaugh, where it's always Chicken Little, everything's the awful. And I do believe that. I think you're right about that it has become Chicken Little, everything's falling. This is the worst possible thing in the world. But I think both parties seem to portray it like that. We can go back to another Biden example, Joe Biden crime family. Not a single shred of information ever showed up. We had a 4-year investigation about that. 4 years, not a single thing. And the major timeline about Ukraine and Burisma was completely bogus. Not on my opinion, based on how time works. It was complete falsity, but yet was pushed over and over again by a particular party and by people that had a particular worldview. And that was false. And RFK Jr. has been pushing false views for years. And he has. Now, if you think that he has changed and you want to put him in the position, go right ahead. Again, confirm Sonic the Hedgehog or Pac-Man if you want, because you have the votes. You have earned the right. You won the election. Go right ahead. But I think you need to be honest again about who he is. If you talk about vaccines, he thinks that vaccines and part of the reason that we have trans kids. He talks about vaccines and chemicals and stuff being put into kids, and that's why they turn trans. His thing when he cites about the fluoride, he's misappropriating the conclusions about the studies on fluoride. The studies show that at a certain level. However, the fluoride studies in our water system don't reach those levels. So the thing that he's concerned about isn't necessarily existent. We talked about his concerns about the COVID vaccine. He said, yeah, he disagreed on this one point about the COVID vaccine, but he ignores his larger point on the COVID vaccine about the fact that he thought COVID was engineered to avoid Jewish people and to avoid Chinese people. That's a problem there. Also, he talked about COVID vaccines enrolled in mercury, but the mRNA vaccines don't use a mercury delivery system, and we've outlawed mercury delivery systems in the vast majority of our vaccines. Yet he still pushes back on that, and he still uses that as a cudgel. He thinks that Lyme disease was a bioengineered weapon. These are all conclusions that have come out of his mouth, and he didn't do anything to say or explain why he now says he has a different view. He can have a different view, and I applaud someone for having a different view. That should be how science works. But he never once said, oh, I've changed my mind. He just said, this is my view now. That's what I said then, this is now. He never walked us through why he changed it. He never said, oh, I was wrong then. And again, he's got time, and that's 3-4 words. But somehow those words do not get uttered out of his mouth. So, okay, again, I just think that he can ask questions, ask all the questions you want, but the answers are important. An analogy to this would be Alex Jones. Alex Jones asked a hell of a lot of questions about the Sandy Hook shooting. The conclusions he came to were wrong, and he had to pay billions of dollars for that because of the wrong conclusion. So the questions are fine, but the conclusions matter. And over his lifetime, RFK Jr. has come to some right conclusions and a whole lot of wrong ones. But again, you want to put him in charge? Go right ahead. I will not disagree with you. I will not fight you about it. You have the votes. Put in charge whoever you want.
Like I said at the beginning, I find it a lot more nuanced than what is being made out to be. And every time I dive into these things about vaccine hesitancy or the Samoan incident or stuff, there's a lot more complicated factors. Even the COVID targeting of Jews things, he was just asking and raising those questions. Why does it seem to be targeting? Why do the death rates seem to be a lot greater in some folks than others? But I want to hear from our listeners. 303-696-1971. If you were on the committee, would you vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be HHS secretary? Or is he going to be a great threat to Health and Human Services and be a real problem? That's what the Democrats seem to think. By the way, our text line, and you can text us, it comes right in here to the studio, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Would love to hear from you. Coming up in just about 5 minutes, Kash Patel's committee hearing is going to kick off. We'll be bringing that to you live, as well as Tulsi Gabbard in about 35 minutes. Her committee hearing will begin. How do you feel about all these folks? Trump seems to be getting them through so far. Are they going to do a good job? I mean, goodness, Sean Duffy, not even 48 hours on the job or something. It's now got to deal with this terrible plane crash that took place. So
this is awful. And it's awful that he hasn't been on the job that long and gets no ramp up. Then it has to deal with this awful, awful tragedy. This is horrible. Yeah.
We'll give you the latest on these crashes as well. I want to talk to you about my friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. Look, if the last couple of years have taught us one thing, it's to value the things we can control. Can't control housing costs. You can't control taxes. You can't, none of that stuff, but you can address your hair loss. Our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration can reverse years, even decades of hair loss with their simple one-day treatment. Your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day, and your new hair is backed by Advanced Hair Guarantee. It works for bald spots, receding hairlines, thinning hair, men, women, younger, wiser. Advanced Hair can address many different patterns of hair loss. Advanced Hair's top-rated physicians, like Dr. Tanya Pauls, have changed tens of thousands of people's lives, and now it's your turn. Schedule your free consultation by calling 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. And to celebrate the new year, get special financing, 250 free hair grafts, and $250 off. Value the things you can control and start regrowing your own natural hair today. That's 720-459-HAIR, or become inspired with before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking RFK and his committee hearing yesterday. RFK Jr., what did you think of it? Would you vote to pass him on to become the new Secretary of Health and Human Services, or is he a disaster for our healthcare in this country, and he's going to increase unvaccination rates, and that's going to bring in more diseases? Where do you fall along all this? I think part of the issue that's driving a lot of this, Northeastern University did a 50-state survey into public trust in physicians and hospitals. In 2020, 71.5% of people trusted physicians and hospitals. 4 years later, it has gone from 71.5% to 40.1%. That is a 30-point drop that Americans have for hospitals and physicians, trust in hospitals and physicians. Is that driving a lot of this? I think so. Let's go to the phone lines.
Almost like they were told something that wasn't true over and over again. It's weird and changed their mind. Almost.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Maybe lies do have an impact. Maybe they do.
That's how I felt about a lot of COVID things. All right, let's go to Jack, Wyoming. Good morning, Jack. What's your perspective on RFK Jr.?
Yeah, it's going to be real quick. I'm an old guy. I'm 82 years old. I grew up in New York City, and I'm very familiar with his two uncles and his father, very politically. And I've followed politics forever. You guys probably know that. But what I'm going to say about Jr., RFK Jr., he is the first Kennedy that I've ever seen. Whether he's right or wrong, I'm not going to get into that end of it on this whole issue. But he seems to be genuinely concerned about the human condition and trying to make it better for people. The rest of the Kennedys were concerned about nothing other than self-promotion. His father was the worst of all of them. And believe me, I followed politics very closely. But
father being Robert F. Kennedy, or his father being the who is the grandfather of all that stuff? I forget his name.
Grandfather is Joseph.
Joseph, yeah.
Joseph married into the Fitzgerald family. Okay, Joe Kennedy was a piece of garbage. He was trailer trash. Okay, he married into the Fitzgerald family, the woman, and she was high class. And in the old days, they called it lace curtain Irish, and they called it shanty Irish. I mean, there was a distinction between.
Nice job, man.
Well, I know you haven't, but you're not 82 years old.
No, I'm not, but that's cool. That's stuff that my dad used to say. I love that, man. Continue. That's really cool.
Let me give you the truncated version. He's the first Kennedy I've ever seen that was not self-promoting themselves. He's actually interested in doing something to help the people. And that's the essence of what I have to say. Thank you.
Interesting.
That's fair.
Do you agree with that?
I don't know. Now, Jack, if you're still with us, what do you do with the idea that he created this large anti-vax organization that's been paying him millions of dollars and has been going all over the world, and he started this company that just, in my opinion, pushes false information and things that aren't true? Would we still qualify that as RFK Jr. being focused on helping everybody if the stuff they promote isn't necessarily helpful based on the available scientific information?
That's a very, very, very complicated question.
Yeah,
my point is his intentions are for the betterment of the masses.
That's fair.
His intentions are not just focused on the betterment of himself, as was the case with his two uncles and his father. And his father was absolutely the worst. He was the most despicable politician that ever lived. And if you got an hour, I can give you his.
I would love to hear.
Time he got out of law school.
I feel like Robert F. Kennedy has this great reputation. He was the Attorney General under Jack Kennedy. Implemented a bunch of the civil rights policies. Jack, give me your opinion on RFK.
His father?
Yeah, his father.
Yeah, he came out of law school and he made his bones by going after the senator from Wisconsin who was trying to clean up the communist movement and all the colleges and all the universities.
Oh, McCarthy.
What was Joe McCarthy?
Yeah.
Yes, that's how he made his bones. And the only reason he did that, fresh out of law school, is to build his own name up. That's what I'm calling about self-promotion. The truth of the matter is Joe McCarthy was a hero. I mean, the problem that we have and have had ever since that is the infiltration of socialism, communism in the universities, in the colleges in this country. And the Democrats have been basically taken over by the communists. I mean, but his father was the most despicable politician in my lifetime. And here his son is basically trying to do something to help people, not just promote himself. And he's the first Kennedy to ever do that. The Democrats could have won the election if they had ran him as their candidate, but they couldn't run him as their candidate because he's not a communist. He's not a committed communist.
I would disagree with you there. I would disagree with you there because I don't think that he could have run because of a lot of the beliefs that he had been outlined here on the show. But I got another question for you, Jack. We've talked this morning a lot about the idea of, and I like the term that Jeff has been using on this, the Kavanaughing of these confirmation hearings, and the idea that any little thing that we can dredge up becomes the biggest thing in the world, and we can't possibly confirm this person. Now, you have enough water under the bridge. You remember when these confirmation hearings were more congenial. Yes, there were disagreements, but it was more on policy and things like that. We weren't trying to just get gotcha questions and stuff for the Instagrams and TikToks. My question to you is, do you think the ship has sailed on how we used to confirm nominees? Is this just what we're going to do from now on, that anybody that has any kind of a skeleton in their closet, it's going to be dredged out, and it's going to be this kind of cat versus dog fighting in perpetuity in every administration going forward? What's your feeling given the amount of time that you've watched this happen?
I think people saw through Kavanaugh, and I think that the extension and the verticality of the attacks on Kavanaugh that we are seeing now, I think people are transparent to that. That's your answer.
But do you think that if we have someone back in the White House, we get a Democrat in the White House and they have nominees, do you think the Republicans are going to behave the same way that we are accusing the Democrats of behaving now with the confirmation hearings? Do you think they will be doing the same type of things?
They will not, because that's not who they are.
It's not.
They won't.
Yeah, and in fact, hang on,
Jack, hang on. Do you remember the Obama administration years? What do Republicans do during then? Didn't they do the exact same thing?
No.
Yeah, they
here
did.
are the cabinet. Here are the votes.
Hang on a second.
Here are the votes.
Hang on.
I can read them to you.
No. I'm talking about the idea of Kavanaughing people, and that's exactly what they did to Barack Obama. It's exactly what they did.
To Barack or to his cabinet?
We
were talking about
the congeniality. I know, but he said, but Jack is saying they don't behave that way. Yes, they do. Yes, Republicans do behave this way. I'm wondering if we're ever going to get past it. Yes, Republicans absolutely behave this way.
Here are the Senate votes for Biden's cabinet nominees. Tony Blinken confirmed 78-22. Janet Yellen, 84-15. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense. There's a lot to talk about. 93-2. Merrick Garland, 70-30. I mean, really the only one that was close was the Secretary of Interior, Deborah Haaland, which was 51-40. Xavier Becerra, Secretary of HHS, was 50-49. So you got a close ones, but a lot of these 98-0. Catherine Tai, U.S. Trade Representative. So, I think it seems to be pretty one-sided here, at least with regards to these cabinet picks.
Yeah, I can see the point on that one, but I disagree. Again, I think part of it is who the nominees are necessarily, because you're talking about someone that has been proudly anti-vax, now being charged of vaccine schedules. You're talking about someone who has said the FBI is part of the deep state, now being allegedly put in charge of the FBI. That's kind of an issue. You have someone that was a weekend Fox TV host that now is SecDef. That's a little bit different of where we are, and especially interesting given the merit-based hiring that Trump is so proud of. But yeah, the Republicans spent we had 4 years of Jim Jordan talking about the weaponization of government. All I'm saying is the behavior is the same on both sides, and I don't think we're going to get past it.
I got one response to the idea that they're not, that the picks are different, and that's Pete Buttigieg. who was a mayor of a small town.
Yeah, he should not have been confirmed as transportation secretary.
86-13.
Yeah. Well, that's because the he's gay doesn't work anymore. That's the only thing.
I'm glad you said it.
That's the only thing is you can't accuse somebody of being gay and then saying that doesn't
Jack,
disqualify anymore.
Great call.
Yeah,
I sure
thanks, Jack.
appreciate it.
You.
Jack's line's open 303-696-1971. Well, Bill and I go back and forth debating a lot of things. There's one thing that we do agree on. That's our great supporters, and one of them is Wound Care Associates of Colorado.
Yeah, this is a brand new advertiser that we have here on the show, Wound Care Associates of Colorado. I'm really excited to tell you about them because there's some personal stories in my life that the reason they exist really resonates. Let me explain it to you what Wound Care Associates of Colorado is. They are expert nurses and some doctors that are behind the scenes, and they're wound care professionals that come to your house to deal with slow healing cuts, diabetic ulcers, pressure sores, things like that. I know that little cut doesn't seem to be a big deal. A small cut that was on my aunt's foot turned into MRSA when she was going to the hospital to get treatments. She had repeated stays inside the hospital and had some amputations because of MRSA that she contacted while she was getting a chronic wound treated. Ignoring that wound isn't going to make it better. And Jennifer, who started Wound Care Associates of Colorado, she's going to join us next week. She'll tell us the story about her uncle who developed, because he had some comorbidities, some diabetes and neuropathy, a small cut on his foot. That cut became infected. He didn't think it was a big deal at all. It got a little red, a little bothersome. By the time that he got medical attention, the infection had started and had spread into his body. They took part of his foot, but it was too late. The infection had already matured enough that it killed him 3 days later. A little cut on his foot, and it killed him. That's how important taking care of those chronic cuts and those wounds are. That's why I want you to contact Wound Care Associates of Colorado. If anybody in your family, I don't care about the age. I've got a story we're going to talk about in a little bit about someone that is younger in my family that's dealing with chronic wounds and why you need to have this thing fixed. No more struggling with getting transportation. You're not going to go to the hospital like my aunt did and possibly get infected with something else. No more long waits at the clinic. Wound Care Associates of Colorado's skilled nurses will come to your home. In the privacy of your own home, you get the compassionate, comprehensive care that you need. They assess your wound. They'll develop a personalized treatment plan and provide all the necessary care. And this is the important part, to heal your wound. The treatment my aunt was getting, it was about maintenance. They just didn't want the wound to get any better or any worse. Sorry, they didn't want to get any worse. Would you go to a doctor that says, oh, man, that's an awful broken arm. That's horrible. Let's just make sure the arm doesn't get any worse. How about we heal it, doc? Oh, yeah, I see that your shoulder is deteriorating and breaking, and let's just make sure it doesn't get any worse. That's really not the medical care you're looking for. You're looking for someone that's going to heal the problem. That's why you want to go with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. They're not going to maintain it. They're going to fix it. You get the convenience, comfort, privacy. You receive expert care in the comfort and privacy of your own home. Tailored care plan that addresses your specific needs. And because they want to make it heal, it promotes faster healing. You're going to feel better quicker. If your loved one is struggling with a chronic wound, visit coloradowound.com. coloradowound.com for more information and to schedule your in-home visit today. When you contact them at coloradowound.com, tell them you heard about it here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because it really does help us out. Thank you so much. Back to you, Jeff.
Great to hear, Bill. We'll continue, plus updates on the terrible plane crash that took place at Reagan National Airport last evening. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're going to go briefly over to the live hearing of Kash Patel. This is Chuck Grassley speaking.
FBI agents and DOJ officials tried and ultimately succeeded in launching a full field criminal investigation and prosecution of the President of the United States. Justice Department and FBI leadership acted in concert to further a political scheme to take down Trump, just like they did with Crossfire Hurricane. They have yet to learn a lesson, and I hope you'll learn that lesson for them or teach that lesson. And their conduct, yet again, seriously eroded integrity of this once storied institution. As I've said before, if a politically charged investigation is to be open, it must be done the right way, and that didn't happen here. Mr. Patel, in my time, I've never seen our law enforcement intelligence community institutions so badly infected with political decision-making. And I say intelligence community because you know what happened when 55 people, former or present intelligence agencies, signed a letter in 2020 that the laptop was a Russian hoax, as an example. So all of this is these institutions breaking faith with we the people. Mr. Patel, you must be fair, you must be consistent, but you must be aggressive. Your actions must be based on accountability, and transparency brings accountability. Should you do so, you'll have my support. And remember, either you're going to run your agency or the agency's going to run you. And the agency certainly ended up running Director Wray and probably people before him.
That's a good line.
Without objection, I'm going to put in this letter in the record. And this letter,
are you going to run the agency, or is the agency going to run
Director Wray,
you?
December the 9th last year, calling for him and his deputies to step down, and it's titled, quote unquote, failures. Now I turn to Ranking Member Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your commitment to the Judiciary Committee's longstanding bipartisan practice of vetting presidential nominees. A little history. The FBI dates back to the start of the last century, 1908, when then Attorney General Charles Bonaparte organized a special agent force.
All right, we're going
J.
to
Edgar Hoover
continue
became director
to
of the
cover
FBI in 1924.
Kash Patel's hearing before the Senate Confirmation Committee. We're up against a break here, so stick with us. We'll bring it back to you live in addition to Tulsi Gabbard's hearing taking place. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, January 30th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're continuing to follow the 67 feared dead in a midair collision that took place outside of Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Blake Olson will give us an update on that, and then we'll get to the live hearings taking place in Washington, D.C. of Kash Patel for director of the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard for intelligence chief. All of that coming up. We're going to continue to give us the latest updates, but let's check in first. News and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
All right. Good morning, Jeff. Wow, what a morning. 31 degrees, a little snow in Denver, expecting a high of 44 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Fire command. The accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
Officials don't believe any survivors will be found in the crash involving American Airlines, the jet, and Army Black Hawk helicopter that occurred near D.C. The crash happened last night as the regional jet was approaching Reagan National. It was carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members on the flight from Wichita, Kansas, including world champion figure skaters from the U.S. and Russia. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the D.C. area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in D.C. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently.
Duffy's only been on the job for about 5 days. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that his department is actively investigating. And of course, he's only been in that position for a couple of days after the confirmation hearings. Rescue operations have switched to recovery operations. The water temperature near the crash site was in the mid-30s last night. President Trump believes the deadly crash should have been prevented. In a post on Truth Social last night, Trump said the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. As we just heard, he questioned why the Army Black Hawk helicopter didn't see the plane, adding it was a clear night and the lights on the plane were blazing.
Things suddenly got very quiet at first. At this time of night, you typically hear tons of airplanes take off and land, and suddenly things got very quiet, and then it was just sirens nonstop.
That was a Washington Post reporter who lives near the airport. More confirmation hearings on Capitol Hill this morning. The first one just underway.
I want to welcome everyone to this very important hearing to consider the nomination of Kash Patel to serve as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Congratulations on your nomination.
Chuck Grassley.
You must be consistent, but you must be aggressive. Your actions must be based on accountability, and transparency brings accountability. Should you do so, you'll have my support. And remember, either you're going to run your agency or the agency's going to run you.
This one is huge. And another one, also big. Tulsi Gabbard will also be grilled in her effort to become Director of National Intelligence. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. will take part in his second confirmation hearing after facing tough questions and some ridiculous ones Wednesday in his bid to become Secretary of Health and Human Services. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says he's open to talking with Congress about federal immigration reform, but hasn't decided if he will testify before a committee investigating sanctuary cities.
Certainly open to having a conversation with Congress on what they can do to address federal immigration reform and how they can help cities like ours. So we've reached back out to the commission. We're in conversation with them.
Johnston tells Denver 7 that he's having conversations with the committee and could testify if it would be beneficial for the city. He was asked to do so before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee earlier this week. The committee reportedly is opening the investigation into so-called sanctuary cities and wants the mayors of Denver, Chicago, Boston, and New York City to testify. More hostages are being released by Hamas to Israel. The Palestinian terrorists handed over a female Israeli soldier to the Red Cross in a ceremony in northern Gaza today. Agam Berger is among the hundreds taken captive by Hamas after its deadly attack on Israel in October of 2023. It's 28 in Littleton, 29 in Lakewood, and 31 in Denver. Thursday, Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Denver is right on the edge of a storm system over east central Colorado. There will be a chance of snow showers today. Temperatures making the 40s. The snow showers will be heavier and accumulations more likely east along 70 out towards Lyme and on the way to Burlington. That's where the snow will be more widespread. Temperatures tonight down into the mid-20s as the storm moves out, skies clearing, then mild and dry Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with temperatures warming back to the 50s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Big day on Capitol Hill. In addition to the terrible plane crash that took place outside at the airport, at Reagan National Airport, there's Kash Patel up for FBI director and Tulsi Gabbard up for director of national intelligence. We're going to go live to their committee hearings. Let's check in now on Kash Patel.
Healed from that wound to his leg. He returned to combat.
This is just Dick kind of Durbin. I believe he's the ranking member.
Regardless of party, he was a real American. He was a longtime federal prosecutor, a U.S. attorney, the head of the DOJ's criminal division, and acting deputy attorney general before he became head of the FBI. After 9/11, I worked with him, and we had a good relationship, a professional relationship. We didn't always see eye to eye, but I respected him so much for what he had given to this country. In this book, Mr. Patel calls Director Bob Mueller, quote, a swamp creature. With all due respect, Mr. Patel, I've not worn the uniform of this country, and neither of you. To think that you would denigrate Bob Mueller's service to our country and call him a swamp creature is an indication of the depths your political views take you. The FBI plays a critical role in keeping America safe from terrorism, violent crime, and other threats. Our nation needs an FBI director who understands the gravity of this mission and is ready on day one, not someone who is consumed by his own personal political grievances. The American people deserve an FBI director focused on keeping our families safe from terrorism, drug trafficking, and violent crime, not this checklist of grievances we find in this book. Mr. Patel, your record makes it clear you're not that person. I yield.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. Before I call on Senator Tellis, I want to clear up something the way I see it, and I think I'm going to invite everybody that it can be cleared up. This business about what Mr. Patel said about cowards in uniform, it's a mischaracterization of what he actually said. So I'm going to invite you to listen to the interview Mr. Patel gave that linked to his post to hear what he actually said. When he said cowards in uniform, he was talking about senior Pentagon leadership failing to mobilize the National Guard to protect the Capitol. His comments had nothing to do with police. Mr. Patel made his comments while discussing an article in the New York Times exposing grave miscommunication between the Department of Defense and the DC National Guard. So I would encourage people to follow up on that. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, colleagues on the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's my honor to introduce Kash Patel, President Trump's nominee to be FBI Director. I've completed due diligence on his life and career, and I'm convinced that Kash possesses significant expertise and ironclad commitment to justice, and he's an outstanding choice to lead the FBI. Kash's parents are Indian immigrants of Gujarati ancestry. They're up here in the front row. The Gujarat state is a melting pot of religions, including Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, with temples, mosques, and other religious sites scattered across the state. His father was raised in Uganda, but his family had to flee the country to escape repression under Idi Amin. His mother was born in Tanzania. They met and married in India and ultimately made their way to New York City by way of Canada, where his parents, along with 7 brothers and sisters and their spouses and at least a half a dozen kids, lived under the same roof. His parents raised Kash in the Hindu faith, and they instilled in him the values of hard work and education. Kash is a devout Hindu, and consistent with his faith, he's shown respect to people of all faiths. Kash attended the University of Richmond, where he earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice and history. He went to Pace University School of Law, where he earned his JD, and an international law certificate from the University College of London, Faculty of Laws. Kash began his career as a public defender in Florida, where he led or co-led more than 60 jury trials in state and federal court. Kash clearly demonstrated a devotion to upholding the rule of law and defending the rights of individuals.
This is a giant waste of time. This should be an email. I mean, there's like a bio on the back of the book.
Bill's ready to jump right into the wrestling. Come on, get after it.
You're wasting my time, Tom Tillis. You've got some time here.
They're buttering him up. This is what they do during their confirmation hearings. Republicans are showing how great of a pick.
Yeah. And Dems do the exact same thing. I hate this. This is why these things drive me nuts. This is why I couldn't sit there in this hearing. Sit there and go, bleh, 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 bleh. I'd be making
This
faces.
is why I can't. I don't think I could be elected official either.
No way.
It's the
Dude, anybody that has spent more than 5 minutes
of it.
listening to this show knows why I can't be elected in anything public. There's no way. I'm barely allowed out of this room in public. Back to Tom Tillis.
In 2017, he told me he distinctly remembers my friend Trey Gowdy comment shortly after they were introduced. He said in Trey's dialect, Kash, Congress is where righteous investigations go to die. I hope you're ready. I think Kash was ready, and he went on to establish a solid reputation for pursuing the facts, and from there, he held senior posts at the NSC, the Department of Defense, and the DNI. Since leaving the administration in 2020, Kash has written articles and books on national security, law, and governance. Through his work as an author, Kash continues to advocate for justice and transparency, and to be ever vigilant in defending our great democracy and the rule of law. Colleagues, I created a Kash bingo card that I have available to any of my colleagues that would like it on the other side of the aisle.
If you're not doing shots while you're playing this, it doesn't count. Yeah, this is dumb unless we're doing shots.
775 going. They all sound like the old geezers, like Grandpa Simpson.
Yes. Yes. Each one of these things is like, well,
Kash bingo card.
Yeah. Or they're sitting there going, no, in my day, the pancakes cake took up the whole place.
Words like enemy and deep state. I've already X'd out 4 boxes in the opening statements alone. The fact of the matter is, some people will be here to simply substantiate a false narrative. At worst, they may be just going through an unfounded litany of of quotes and half truths, some of which have already been dispelled by the chairman after the opening statements. Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, in my 10 years in the Senate, I hope I've established a reputation for being fair, doing my homework, and taking tough positions that have been met with harsh criticism. Heck, I've even been censured by my entire state and 30 counties for taking tough positions. And I stand by those decisions today and my decision to support Kash Patel. When President Trump announced his intent to nominate Kash, I contacted Trey Gowdy and others who worked with Kash, and they gave me glowing recommendations. So I called Kash on December the 2nd, and I offered to help him with his nomination. Since then, we have spent hours together, in person and on the phone. I've asked him difficult questions, and I've urged him to reach out to members across the aisle. In fact, Kash Patel has met with 60 members of the U.S. Senate. Every member except the last 3 who were sworn in, and the majority of the members on the other side of the dais in this committee and members off the committee. Chair Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, friends and colleagues on the committee, I've completed my due diligence of Kash Patel, and I am honored to provide my strongest recommendation for his confirmation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Wow, nice Tom tell us.
Thank
We
you
should all
for
question
that
his judgment.
introduction. Before I
Just
swear
saying.
you, I want to
Yeah,
make
indeed,
clear
man.
that you, before you give your statement, if you want to introduce
Yeah.
family and friends in the audience, you're welcome to do that. Would you please stand? Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give to the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do, Mr. Chair.
Okay. You may proceed.
Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. I must start
That's why it sounds like a book report.
with a word of prayer
Everyone, sorry.
for the tragic accident that befell our nation last night, where we lost civilians and service members. I pray for their families. I pray for law enforcement and military personnel, and I pray for their souls, and hopefully God will find them peace in the near future. I'd like to welcome my father, Pramod, and my mother, Anjana, who are sitting here today. They traveled here to get here from India. My sister's also here, Nisha. She also traversed the oceans just to be with me here today. It means the world that you guys are here. Jesse Krishna. I wouldn't be here today without their guidance, their unwavering support, and their relentless love. When President Trump informed me of his intention to nominate me as the director of the FBI, I was deeply honored. Sitting here today, I carry not only the dreams of my parents, but also the hopes of millions of Americans who stand for justice,
the other thing
fairness,
is that
and the rule
we're
of law.
now into a
My
few
commitment
of
to
these
these
confirmation
principles is
hearings,
deeply
and
rooted in my
we all
family's
just want to
history,
jump right into the
which has
boxing
profoundly
match.
shaped my world.
Oh,
Let's
heck
go.
yeah.
Just
That's the fun
jump in.
part.
My father
All right.
fled
Let's jump
Idi
in.
Amin's genocidal dictatorship in Uganda.
Again, this is
where
okay,
300,000
but
men, women,
here's my
and children
background.
were killed
But
based
after what
on
Tom
their
did,
ethnicity,
I don't know.
just because they
you
happen
know.
to look like me.
He just did the bio thing.
My mother is originally
Oh, well.
from
The meeting that could be
She
an
studied
email?
in
Yes,
India,
that's exactly
as did my
it.
dad, and they were married there. They would later emigrate to New York, as the senator pointed out, where I was born. And we were raised in a household of my father's 7 siblings, their spouses, and at least half a dozen children. That's the only way we knew how to do things at the time in the 70s and 80s, the Indian way. But we would soon learn the American way. These values have shaped and been the driving force of my career in 16 years of government service. Protecting the rights of the Constitution is of the utmost importance to me and has been every single time I've taken that oath of office. The recent terrorist attacks in New Orleans tragically claimed the lives of 14 innocent Americans and serve as a stark reminder that our national security is at threat, both internally and externally. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Justice, where I served, play a pivotal role in securing our freedoms and our safeties for American citizens. If confirmed as the next FBI director, I will remain focused on the FBI's core mission. That is to investigate fully wherever there is a constitutional factual basis to do so, and to never make a prosecutorial decision that is solely the providence of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. For the first 8 years after law school, I served as a public defender, first for Miami-Dade County and later for the Southern District of Florida. During that time, I represented some pretty awful human beings charged with some pretty heinous crimes. But what I learned there was the core value that has been enshrined in me since, that due process must be provided without bias to all Americans. And if we cannot provide due process to the worst, then there can be no due process for anyone, and our constitutional republic fails. But I battled on that hill for that due process. I would later serve in the Obama Justice Department as a terrorism prosecutor in the National Security Division, where we successfully contributed to the prosecutions of terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, and others. I was honored to receive the 2017 Assistant Attorney General's Award from Loretta Lynch for my work in helping the Ugandans bring members of Al-Shabaab to justice for murdering 74 innocent people, including an American. I would also receive the Human Intelligence Award from the intelligence community for related work on that mission. My experiences at the National Security Division and would later be followed by my experiences on the
Bill,
National
if you
Security
had a
Council
question,
as Senior Director for Counterterrorism.
Well, they're going through their
and
bio
later,
stuff.
as Deputy Director of
What's your top question? What's your leading question, Senator Thorpe?
Yeah, my leading question is this. Over the course of 2020 and beyond, you have advocated over and over again that the 2020 election was stolen. Do you still come to that conclusion? That's where we start. And then after that, we get the knives out and we slowly take him apart, little cut by little cut, until he lays on the floor eviscerated, because that's something he can't defend. At least if I'm there. These jokers,
2020
there.
That's that you think you can use 2020 to pick him apart?
That's where I would start. Again, that's the first question.
But where else would you go?
It depends. There's some other things. There's some people that
have trust in the FBI.
Some people that
in order to get it back, there's a twofold track.
don't agree on his conclusions. I mean, we have a judge out of Texas that is a Republican appointed judge that said he was absolutely worthless on the case and described him as, I don't remember what I cited him for. I want to say cited for ineptitude or something like that. I forgot. I have to go have to look for what it was, but said that he was the poster child for a non-essential government worker. And that's based on the legal stuff that he's been highlighting here that he's done. We have Bill Barr saying that when Trump wanted to appoint him to the Department of Justice, Bill Barr saying, over my dead body, Kash's direct supervisor called into question his judgment. But I would start with 2020, because if he wants to be the lead law enforcement official in this country, or not lead law enforcement, but lead the FBI, he should be able to figure out what charges are true and chase those crimes and what charges are false.
Right.
And so far in 2020, he wrote children's books about conclusions that were false. One of them cited a movie that our company has since pulled because it was revealed to be a load of crap. So yeah, and he wrote a children's book citing that as being true. That's where I start, because he has to have the ability to discern what is true and what is fiction. And that demonstrates to me he has a real problem doing that.
I would start with the last 8 years have demonstrated that the FBI has become a corrupt political prosecution entity.
What's the question?
For political, I'll get to it, for the Democrat Party. How are you going to restore trust into the work of the FBI? That would be my first question.
All right. Well, he's done his little bio thing, so let's see what happens here.
7 minutes first round, is that right? 7 minutes for 3 minutes the second round.
How does he not know? Just saying.
Mr. Patel.
Been there for a while.
I'm not going to go through all the
That's a good line
things
of
that
questioning,
you've
though.
done
I like where you're going with that.
through your career, because
That'd be
I
good.
said those in my opening statements, but Democrats on the committee say you don't have experience. What are you most proud of from your career in public service?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. It's really humbling to be afforded the opportunity to have served this country for 16 years. But I think what I'm most proud of is my work in national security, protecting the no-fail mission, returning American hostages, killing high-value terrorists that brought hate and destruction to our shores. I've served that mission in Democratic and Republican administrations, and it is the one mission that we cannot fail, and it is the one mission where the FBI must play a critical role.
Okay. As you well know, and you and I discussed this in my office, whistleblowers are critical to rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Their courage to come forward and make legally protected disclosures about government wrongdoing benefits the country. I think they're politically, they are good American citizens, just want the government to do what it's supposed to do. I think they're treated by bureaucracies, not just in the FBI, but throughout the bureaucracy, like skunks at a picnic. Will you protect whistleblowers from retaliation, unlike former Director Wray, and promote a culture at the FBI that values whistleblowers' important contributions?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I share in your beliefs about the importance of whistleblowers.
So we've spent a lot of taxpayers' money ruining whistleblowers. Will you commit to ensuring that no taxpayer money will be used to identify and retaliate against whistleblowers?
Senator, if I'm confirmed, it will not.
Okay. You and I have heard a lot of criticism about various statements about January 6th. You said, quote, those who broke actual laws should be prosecuted, end of quote. But you've also called out the partisan nature of prosecutions and compared how the Biden Justice Department treated January 6th defenders with how they ignored many other crimes. Those include crimes related to illegal immigration, as well as riots that took place around the country. So explain your position on January 6th to this committee, and how do you respond to critics who say that you're anti-law enforcement?
Mr. Chairman, I greatly appreciate the question, the opportunity to discuss that. If anyone wants to consider me as anti-law enforcement, then look at my 16 years in government service, whether I was trying 60 jury trials in state and federal court upholding the rights of the indigent and breathing life into constitutional due process, or later as a national security prosecutor, where I served this country and overseas, and later when I was a Joint Special Operations Command civilian embedded with SEAL Team 6 and Delta, chasing down some of the most high-value target terrorists there are on this earth and successfully achieving a mission end state. I have always respected law enforcement. I have taken that oath and will take that oath again, God willing, to be the next director of the FBI. As for January 6th, I have repeatedly, often, publicly, and privately said there can never be a tolerance for violence against law enforcement. And anyone that commits an act of violence against law enforcement must be investigated, prosecuted, and imprisoned. And on January 6th, I said the same thing about acts against law enforcement. The Capitol Police, who I have served with, and when I was Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, rushing to the aid of the members of this committee and your colleagues to provide the National Guard was my top mission priority, not politics. And that is my love of this country, to protect our laws and our way of life. And it was no different. If there's any ever corruption, I have been the first to call it out. And I will continue to call out corruption in government service, because it is a privilege to serve this nation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Outside of this committee, and some people on this committee have
the
accused
Democrats will
me
bring
of
that up.
promoting the
Yeah,
QAnon
but still.
movement.
There's the
My
opportunity.
colleagues have already
So this
asked
is a political
their future
move to
boss,
try to
Mr.
disarm the
Bondi,
Democrats
Yeah.
from the harshness of their questioning.
see these attacks.
So
Yeah,
they're going to
what they
make
are.
they're going to make Kash
Guilt
look
by
reasonable, which I think he is.
Are you
But the point of Chuck
QAnon?
Grassley asking
No,
these
Senator.
questions is
In
to
fact,
disarm
I have
Democrats.
publicly, including in the interviews provided to this committee, rejected outright QAnon baseless conspiracy theories or any other baseless conspiracy theories. They must be addressed head on with the truth, and I will continue to do that. And I will always continue to support Americans who support law enforcement, our military, and want a secure border.
Over the past 4 years, the FBI and Justice Department have weaponized law enforcement towards partisan ends. This has affected you personally You, along with even members of my staff, were the victims of FBI overreach when they secretly subpoenaed your records during the investigation into Crossfire Hurricane. Inspector General Horowitz of Justice Department was right to say actions like this have a quote, unquote, chilling effect on whistleblowers. How do you intend to make sure that this kind of misconduct never happens again?
Senator, this may be one of the scenarios that most uniquely qualifies me to take command at the FBI. Having been the victim of government overreach and a weaponized system of justice and law enforcement, I know what it feels like to have the full weight of the United States government barreling down on you. And as the Biden Inspector General determined, those activities by the FBI and DOJ were wholly improper and not predicated upon law and facts. I will ensure, if confirmed, that no American is subjected to that kind of torment, to that kind of cost, financially and personally. And most importantly, I will make sure that no American is subjected to death threats like I was, and subjected to moving their residences like I was, because of government overreach, because of leaks of information about my personal status. If confirmed as FBI director, Mr. Chairman, you have my commitment that no one in this country will feel that pain.
Woo, I like to hear that. All right, we'll
Thanks,
continue.
Mr.
That's
Chairman.
Kash Patel. We're just up against a break here, but we'll continue to provide live updates from Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard as they face their Senate confirmation hearings this morning. Look, do you know a high school student who has a passion for engaging in cultural and political issues? The knowledge and skills needed to impact the world through civic engagement is an ever-increasing need in today's society. Colorado Christian University is at the forefront of meeting this crucial need, equipping the next generation of competent, convictional Christian leadership in American politics. CCU's degree program in politics with an emphasis in public policy prepares students for the complex challenges of modern politics from an unapologetically Christian and foundationally conservative worldview. In this distinct program, students learn how to impact public policy and advance Christian conservative ideas. Colorado Christian University also houses the Centennial Institute, a think tank committed to mobilizing ideas on faith, family, and freedom to strengthen America's future. CCU's mission to produce graduates who impact the world with grace and truth applies in no greater measure than to our politics and public policy program. Apply today at ccu.edu/apply. That's ccu.edu/apply. We'll continue with Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard facing their confirmation hearings. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill. Senator Durbin is asking Kash Patel and his proclamation hearing to become FBI director. Let's go back.
Just a few months before this event, Ms. Loomer posted on X that the September 11 terrorist attacks were, quote, an inside job. Around that time, she accused Florida's First Lady, Casey DeSantis, of exaggerating her cancer diagnosis to gain voter sympathy. A number of my Republican colleagues on this committee have criticized Ms. Loomer's extremism. One of my colleagues described her as a, quote, crazy conspiracy theorist who regularly utters disgusting garbage. Another called her really toxic. Given all this, why did you associate with Ms. Loomer?
Senator, as you can see, I took a photograph with an individual who showed up at a book event. I don't believe I'm guilty by association, and I certainly don't believe that an individual who was the first minority to serve as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence for this country is a racist in any way, and I detest any conjecture to the contrary.
You familiar with a Stu Peters? Does that name ring a bell?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
He made 8 separate appearances on his podcast. He promoted outrageous conspiracy theories and worked with a prominent neo-Nazi. There are more, Ted Nugent, it goes on, list goes on. I'm just asking, when it comes to your association with individuals, why are so many of them in this category?
No.
My association, as you loosely define it, is by appearing in media over 1,000 times to take on people who are putting on conspiratorial theories and to devour them of their false impressions and to talk to them about the truth. That is something that I will always continue to fight for, Senator.
Senator Graham.
Thank you. We'll eventually talk about the FBI.
I was going to say, that's a pretty flat line.
That's the job you're up here for, right?
Question.
Have you ever been subject to racism as an individual?
Unfortunately, Senator, yes. I don't want to get into those details with my family here.
Oh, let's get into a few of them. Tell me about it.
Well, if you look at the record from January 6th, where I testified before that committee, because of my personal information being released by Congress, I was subjected to a direct and significant threat on my life. And I put that information in the record. I had to move. In that threat, I was called a detestable, and I'll apologize if I don't get it all right, but it's in the record, a detestable sand nigger who had no right being in this country. You should go back to where you came from. You belong with your terrorist home friends. That's what was sent to me. That's just a piece of it. But that's nothing compared to what the men and women in law enforcement face every day. And that's why they have my support.
Okay. Growing up, were you subject to racism?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I think the reason you're here has a lot to do with your work on Crossfire Hurricane. Are you familiar with that FBI operation?
I am, Senator.
So Senator Durbin mentioned the church report and the history of abuse, but he failed to mention Crossfire Hurricane. He failed to mention the Horowitz report. Wonder why? If you're waiting for these guys over here to figure that out, you're going to die waiting. So this is the Nunes memo. You work for Mr. Nunes over on the House side? David Nunes?
Sorry?
Are you familiar with this memo by the Foreign Intelligence Service Act abuses
Yes.
at the Department of Justice?
Absolutely.
Did you help write this memo?
I did as a staffer.
Okay, I'll put this in the record.
Thank you.
In this memo, you kind of dissected the abuses of Crossfire Hurricane, right?
I did, Senator.
And the Mueller investigation. So the Crossfire Hurricane investigators, two of them were Strzok and Page. Are you familiar with them?
I am, Senator.
Okay. It was opened up on July the 31st, 2016. And here's what Strzok said. And damn, this feels momentous because this matters. The other one did too, but that was to ensure we didn't F something up. This matters because this matters. So super glad to be on this voyage with you. That's to Page. And Page responds a couple of months later, he's not ever going to be president, right? Talking about Trump. Strzok, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Is it fair to say that the people in charge of investigating Crossfire Hurricane hated Trump's guts?
Well, you don't have to take my word for it. That statement, along with the statements from the sources.
Are
during that
those days
operations-
over in the FBI, you hope?
Well, if they're not, they will be.
Okay, good. You know who Carter Page was?
I do, Senator.
Do you know that the FBI secured warrants against him on 4 different occasions?
Yes, Senator.
Do you know that the information that they relied upon came from the Steele dossier?
I do.
Was it you that were able to find out that the Steele dossier was a bunch of crap?
Yes, Senator. We followed the money and we exposed the fraud that was the Steele dossier.
And the primary subsource was Ignor Danchenko, right?
That's correct, Senator.
And he was actually a Russian analyst.
That's right.
Are you aware that in January he told the FBI that let's see, what did he tell the FBI? Still had no proof to support the statements, then it was just talk. The primary subsource explained to the FBI that his information came from word of mouth and hearsay, conversations he had with friends over beers, and some of the information were statements he heard made in jest. And he told the FBI this in January
That's
of
right.
2017. And they got 2 more warrants after that.
That's correct.
Are you aware that the FBI had volumes of information that the Steele dossier was a bunch of bullshit and nobody ever told anybody at the top?
Oh, Lindsay, can't say that word. Can't do that one. Wow.
Carry News
Lindsay.
Live. We had to dump it briefly because of bad
Lindsay's
word.
saying a naughty word. Look at you. Lindsay, wow. Whoever said that he was going to, dang. Man, Lindsay pulling out the BS word.
So it seems like the strategy right now is Democrats are focusing on Kash Patel, some of his connections, his personal relationships, interviews he's done, that type of thing, statements he's made in the past. Republicans focusing on the corruption within the FBI to make the case that Kash Patel is a change agent that can bring important changes there. So
that's a good summary.
It
Good
seems to
summary
be
of it.
the strategy so far from my perspective. We'll continue with the Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard confirmation hearings. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Who's going to curse next? Who's going to curse? Who's going to curse?
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is questioning Kash Patel in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Let's go back.
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that.
Is that
meme,
you reposting it was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists. When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness. And the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge. This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders, they're warnings to be heeded. There is an unfathomable difference between a seeming facade being constructed around this nominee here today and what he has actually done and said in real life when left to his own devices. Conduct shows character. And if you look at history, you see the danger of security chiefs in authoritarian regimes becoming the tools of political power. The characteristics that they often show are that they are vengeful.
Sorry, I had my mic on.
That they are grandiose, that they are intemperate, that they are partisan and blindly loyal, and that they are servile and won't say no. I'm afraid that the history of this nominee's conduct raises those warnings. And I yield my 1 second back.
Before Senator Cornyn, you said you'd like to explain something. I forget the point he made. You can do that now if you want to.
Simply this, Senator. In the collective, all of those statements are taken out of grotesque context. And anyone that thinks my 16 years of service isn't exemplary on how I would proceed if confirmed as FBI is intentionally putting false information into the public ether and creating more public discourse. The only thing that will matter if I'm confirmed as the director of the FBI is a de-weaponized, depoliticized system of law enforcement completely devoted to rigorous obedience of the Constitution and a singular standard of justice.
Kash Patel's hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee will continue with him as well as Tulsi Gabbard. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, January 30th. Mark Crowley's even laughing at me here. Losing at 9 o'clock hour. This is the Wild Hour on the Jeff and Bill Show. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're covering the Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard committee hearings. Let's go back to Kash. Well, we'll go to Kash in a second. Let's start with news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 32 degrees, a little snow in Denver, expecting a high of 44 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
In the river, both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33.
President Trump is about to speak to the nation about last night's deadly crash involving an American Airlines jet and military helicopter. Earlier, he said he's been fully briefed on the deadly crash that happened at Reagan National. In a post on Truth Social, Trump thanked first responders for the work that they are doing. The president said, "May God bless the victims' souls." Brand new Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently.
67 people dead. New Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
It's a tragedy, a horrible loss of life for those 64 souls on that civilian airliner, and of course, the 3 soldiers in that Black Hawk. The 12th Aviation Battalion, as of now, is granted a 48-hour operational pause on contingency missions as what happened is reviewed. The unit involved, the Army unit involved with Bravo Company 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir. It was an annual proficiency training flight.
Confirmation hearings continue in D.C.
I want to welcome everyone to this very important hearing to consider the nomination of Kash Patel to serve as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Congratulations on your nomination.
That's Chuck Grassley.
You must be consistent, but you must be aggressive. Your actions must be based on accountability. And transparency brings accountability. Should you do so, you'll have my support. And remember, either you're going to run your agency or the agency's going to run you.
Patel, the answer to crushing and exposing the corruption in the FBI. He's a bold and brave patriot.
If confirmed as the next FBI director, I will remain focused on the FBI's core mission. That is to investigate fully wherever there is a constitutional factual basis to do so, and to never make a prosecutorial decision that is solely the providence of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General.
And plenty of bozos have said that he's anti-police because they're afraid of him exposing them. Talking a little January 6th and what he stands for.
And that is my love of this country to protect our laws and our way of life. And it was no different. If there's any ever corruption, I have been the first to call it out. And I will continue to call out corruption in government service because it is a privilege to serve this nation.
Today is day one of Tulsi Gabbard's Senate confirmation hearing. Gabbard, a combat veteran, is President Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence, and RFK Jr. continues his hearing today. The DEA says it's taken a suspected member of the Venezuelan gang into custody in Aurora. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Dave Oleski is giving credit to stepped up federal immigration efforts. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says that he's open to talking to Congress about federal immigration reform, but hasn't decided if he will testify before a committee investigation or investigating sanctuary cities.
Certainly open to having a conversation with Congress on what they can do to address federal immigration reform and how they can help cities like ours. So we've reached back out to the commission. We're in conversation with them.
Johnston tells Denver 7 that he's having conversations and it would be beneficial if it would be beneficial for the city. He was asked to do so before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee earlier this week. More hostages are being released by Hamas to Israel. The Palestinian terrorists handed over a female Israeli soldier to the Red Cross in a ceremony in northern Gaza today. Chili's restaurants are booming right now. Sales at the restaurants have been open. Sales at restaurants that have been open at least a year spiked over 30% last quarter. That's its third straight quarter with growth in the double digits. The Knicks over the Nuggets, 122-112. Blues at the Avs tomorrow night. 30 in Englewood, 29 in North Glen, and 32 in Denver. It is Thursday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Denver is right on the edge of a storm system over east central Colorado. There will be a chance of snow showers today. Temperatures making the 40s. The snow showers will be heavier and accumulations more likely east along 70 out towards Lyman on the way to Burlington. That's where the snow will be more widespread. Temperatures tonight down into the mid-20s as the storm moves out, skies clearing, then mild and dry Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with temperatures warming back to the 50s. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're covering the Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel hearings, and Billy just said, I asked Bill, should we go to Tulsi or should we go to Kash? And he said, I think Kash is sexier.
Yeah, totally. Based on this one, because Tulsi's just doing the things, and it's and she's dressed like a stormtrooper. Good look, but it's a lot of white. It's a lot of white.
She looks like a lioness. Let's go to Kash Patel's hearing.
Side effects from a COVID-19 vaccine that is preying on it.
Wait, sorry, messing stuff up there.
Multiple audio
there we go.
streams.
Now we go. There we are. That should be the good one.
This supplement and told people that it would reverse or mitigate the
Senator
side effects
Klobuchar
from COVID vaccine.
Did I give people an opportunity to make an independent choice for what's best for their families? Yes.
You did that last year, correct?
I don't have it in front of me again, Senator.
Mr. Patel, the FBI tackles some of the most complex threats that we face: terrorists, hostile foreign powers, violent gangs, fentanyl, criminal organizations. Your mission, though, has been to go after people. I've looked at it. I've read this stuff. Yes or no? When Trump wins, did you say this? When Trump wins in 2024 and is in power in 2025, we can prosecute them, referring to Justice Department officials for an actual RICO statute violation, for criminally organizing the United States government to break the law to rig presidential elections. Did you say that, yes or no?
Again, Senator, you're reading a partial statement, so I'm unable to fully respond.
Okay, again, we'll put it on the record. X22 report podcast.
Respond.
20. That is from, I'll get you the date, about a year ago. One of the names on your list was Bill Barr. Chairman Grassley has called him one of the most capable cabinet officials I've ever been able to vote for. Senator Graham has said, I have nothing but total respect and admiration for the job done by William Barr as Attorney General of the United States. Is Bill Barr on your list of whatever you want to call them, been referred to as an enemies list? You've called them deep state after serving his country as the Attorney General of the United States. Is he on your list because of a personal vendetta?
Well, it's not whatever we want to call it, Senator. With all due respect, it's not an enemies list. That is a total mischaracterization.
I asked you, I actually used the words you used for the list, which was deep state, right? That's what you put at the top.
It is a glossary
against the Attorney General of the United States. Is it because of a personal vendetta that he's on the list? You're under oath.
I have no personal vendetta against Bill
Okay,
Barr.
he said about you would never be able to command the respect necessary to run the
question,
day-to-day operations of the Bureau. that was actually in writing in his book. He had virtually, about you, no experience that would qualify you to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency, and that your appointment, as noted by Senator Durbin as Deputy Director to the FBI, would happen over his dead body. Is it, yes or no, why you would put him on the list of deep state as a former Attorney General, Trump Attorney General of the United States, because he wouldn't break the law for Donald Trump? Is that why?
No, strong conclusions. Bad question.
As you know, he repeatedly told
Just
the
ask if he's
president
a
in no
person that
uncertain
you're gonna attack,
terms
just like
that
you
he did not see
disavowed
evidence
not more
of
than minutes
fraud
ago.
that would
That's
have
the question.
affected the outcome of the election. Did you say in February of 2021 that the election stuff was never my job and I stayed all of it all? I stayed out of that stuff.
Again, I don't know what comment you're referring to, but I'm sure you're reading a piece of something.
You said it on Pushback on a podcast. Is it true, though, that in December of 2020, you reached out to the Trump acting deputy attorney general and asked him to investigate a conspiracy theory claiming that people in Italy had used military technology and satellites to remotely tamper with voting machines in the US and switch votes for Trump from Trump to Biden? Is that true?
What was the date?
That was out of December of 2020.
I was chief of staff to the Department of Defense, so I don't believe that's accurate in any way.
Okay, that came out of testimony before Congress. I will give it to you. Have you referred to the media as the most powerful enemy of the United States that they have ever seen? Is that right?
I have. Again, you're reading a quote. I take that you're reading it accurately.
CPAC 223-24. You said we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens who helped Joe Biden rig the elections. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Is that something you said?
That's a partial statement of what I said.
Steve Bannon's.
Confirm.
You also said you would put the entire fake news mafia press corps on your list. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
They're on my list.
I don't have that in front of me.
Benny Johnson's podcast.
Yeah, but you're not a law enforcement.
Benny, woo.
You have said
not law
that the
enforcement,
FBI, including today, you said that they remain utterly corrupt. This is an agency with agents who have taken down terrorists, taken down bank robbers, taken down crime. And you wrote that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. Do you know that under Chris Wray's leadership, he took over at a very difficult time, we all know that, appointed by President Trump, that during his tenure, the applications to the FBI has in fact tripled? Do you think people would be applying to that agency like in those numbers if they thought it was so corrupt?
The American public's trust in it is at 40%. That's an all-time low.
Did you say that the FBI headquarters should be shut down and reopened as a museum of the deep state?
Yes.
So, Chairman, are we allowed to go on extra time?
Confirm him more.
You get a second round. Before I call on Senator Lee.
Could he just answer the question if he said that the FBI headquarters where they investigate cybercrime and terrorism should be shut down and opened as a deep state?
Hey, Mr. Chair.
As a museum? Did he say that the headquarters should be shut down?
Mr. Chair.
I deserve an answer to that question.
Yes.
He is asking to be
Yes,
head
it's
of the
just easy.
FBI, and he said that their headquarters should be shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words.
Kash.
It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself. Facts
Cry
matter.
more, Klobuchar.
That you had 3 minutes in the next round to say what you just said.
Okay, I'll say them again.
Okay. Before I call Lee.
Mr. Chair, just parliamentary inquiry, and it was on time. It wasn't disputing any of the debate, but I intend to keep to my 7 minutes, and I appreciate you keeping everyone to it. If we go over, can we have that decrement against the time in the second round? If a member goes over,
I'm not
that was actually 10 minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure that I want to, sometimes it's faster to get things done here, just letting people shout and than it does to shut them up.
Mr. Chairman. You're a wise man, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Before we go to leave.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, what do you want?
I love this guy. Mr. Chairman, I'm unlike Senator Tillis. I mean, if we're going to start this, I want an extra 3 minutes.
Well,
now my friend Senator Klobuchar went 3 minutes over.
So here, what you're saying is the chairman wasn't
Republicans
very
are
good
trying to
chairman,
rein
but
in the
not
Democrats
shut her
right
up.
now. That's
but
the whole
I've
point
gone
of this.
through this before, and I think I know how to handle it. And get
I
this
think
done.
I think you're a star-spangled awesome chairman. I just want to say that for the record. But if you're going to let somebody over there go 3 minutes over, I want my extra 3 minutes.
Well, let's see if it's abused by anybody else before we make that.
There it
decision.
is.
I'm just
That's the
telling you,
line
I'm
they're
going to
trying to get
abuse
to.
it.
Well, I'm not going to let you abuse it.
You're a good man, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Lee, I want to put a record statement in the record from 56 former FBI agents wrote to this committee to support this nominee. Quote, never has the FBI faced such an urgent and compelling need for comprehensive reform as it does today. Mr. Patel has proven he possesses the breadth of experience required to address these challenges. His leadership, expertise, and vision make him uniquely qualified to guide the FBI through this pivotal moment. For these reasons, we stand in full support of Kash Patel's nomination. Any objection? So ordered. Mr. Lee.
Mr. Patel, while we're talking about your awards, let's talk about the cowards in uniform comment for a moment, can we?
Please.
Would you like to tell us what that was? Put it in context, help the committee understand
This is
what that
Senator
was
Mike
about.
Lee of Utah.
I think it's important. Thank you, Senator. During that time on January 6th, I was serving as Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense. And days prior, we had received the authorization from the president to issue the National Guard to protect you and your colleagues. But as you know, the law requires a request before the deployment of that guard. That request did not come in until the afternoon of January 6th. Once that request came in, this unfortunately, as has been confirmed by his own testimony, I believe, the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, failed to immediately deploy the National Guard and instead took a break to speak to media and make personal phone calls. That you and your colleagues. And if you look at the Biden Inspector General report, we at the Department of Defense authorized the fastest cold start of the National Guard since World War II and the largest occupation since the American Civil War. And the Biden Justice Department said that we, including myself as Chief of Staff, when it came to the deployment and employment of the National Guard, acted swiftly and without undue delay.
So that's what you were talking about. And that's why you had the reference to the UCMJ. Tell us what that means.
The Uniform Code of Military Justice is for uniform officers who betray the code of justice and also act inappropriately. And I thought any delay to have the National Guard arrive on scene here must be called out, whether it was a fellow Republican or not, especially someone under my auspices running the Department of Defense.
Okay, so moments ago, when Senator Durbin displayed a chart with that quote, there was a reference in part of it to the UCMJ. That's what it was referring to.
Yes, sir.
Those were the cowards in uniform. Those people who didn't do what they were supposed to do, and a lot of people were put in danger as a result.
That's correct, Senator.
Okay, thank you. That's very good to know. I do find it significant that we've heard all kinds of aspersions cast in your direction by people who do not know you. By people who do not share your worldview, by people who do not share your commitment to the Constitution or your commitment to public service. I find it astounding that they're willing to say this amidst such great ignorance, and I find it equally heartening that the 56 former FBI officials who know you best, who have worked with you, who actually know who you are, who actually share your view of the Constitution, of the view that you ought to be a law enforcement agency and not a weapon of political warfare. These are the people who stand by you. Those who cast aspersions don't share those views. Would I be correct in surmising that?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the Fourth Amendment for a moment. The Fourth Amendment tells us that in order for the government to breach your expectation of privacy relative to your person your home, your papers. If they want to search that, if they want to seize you, they've got to get a warrant. And that warrant has to describe with particularity the persons or places to be searched or to be seized and to connect them up with a showing of probable cause. Now, in the case of FISA 702, we're dealing with a somewhat different universe. Now, moments ago, we heard some discussion about FISA 702, about suddenly we've got a different FISA 702 than what we had when President Trump was last in office. Is that true? Because by my count, FISA 702 has not changed substantively since President Trump was in office last.
That's correct.
Okay. And there was also some back and forth discussion about FISA 702 and the use of it and the fact that in real time, it might not work to get a warrant. This, in my view, misses the point. The concern that the American people have with FISA 702 is not about the real-time collection of communications regarding foreign targets. The concern is that once those communications are stored, you have within them what are referred to as incidentally collected communications of Americans, text messages, emails, recorded phone calls, and so forth. If they want to go in and search for someone, let's say you, if someone wants to go into one of those databases,
we're going to take a quick moment here. Donald Trump is addressing the nation on the deadly midair crash that took place in Washington, D.C.
Before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal. And I have to say, the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast. It was mobilized immediately. The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of really, we are in mourning. This is really shaking a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent, some very talented people. Unfortunately, were on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now and in the days to come. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy, icy Potomac was a cold, cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years, I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating. And then the investigation, 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas. But we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence. And we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened, because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target, and you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation.
Okay, can't do that one. That was Trump just cursed in the air.
I didn't hear it.
That's not cool. That's not cool.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, no. He said a naughty word. He said a no word. So, yeah, maybe we'll step aside for a sec.
Yeah, we
Just
will.
clean
Let me
this up.
talk to you about my friends over
Yeah.
at Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is also believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. We'll continue with updates from the President of the United States. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Hitting the button on a press conference of the president and a Senate confirmation hearing.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Will the next elected official curse on the radio show? Hey, let's go to Sean Duffy, Transportation
Secretary. I think you make
Secretary.
a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency, the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces. I want to take a moment and extend my condolences to the families of the loved ones. We commit to them that we are going to get to the bottom of this investigation, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, but as quickly as possible with the NTSB, who is here today, as well as the FAA. What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination. That didn't happen yesterday. That's not acceptable. And so we will not accept excuses. We will not accept passing the buck. We are going to take responsibility at the Department of Transportation and the FAA to make sure we have the reforms that have been dictated by President Trump in place to make sure that these mistakes do not happen again. And again, I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President, and I appreciate the confidence you placed in me. Thank you.
Pete, would you like to say something?
All right.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Again, I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary said about your leadership. From the moment we found out about this, we were in contact
we're
with the
not
White
getting
House trying to
any
determine exactly
new news coming out of Pete Hegseth or Sean Duffy. So we're going to go over to the Kash Patel hearing where Josh Hawley is questioning.
We know from the voluminous factual finding that was done and is in the record that the FBI and other agencies of this government under the last administration pressured, coerced these social media companies to censor speech of everyday Americans on a range of issues, from the Hunter Biden laptop to COVID to the Dobbs decision, you name it. They tried to censor them. The Constitution doesn't permit the government to do it. The FBI tried to get the social media companies to do it. Will you end this practice, Mr. Patel, once and for all?
Senator, I will always follow the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal is next. I want to say when he's done, so let's see, the 30-minute break would make it about 12:25 or something. I expect you to be back here on time. And I'm going to have Senator Lee, I'm going to go open the Senate up now. Will you chair for me? Okay, thank you. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Patel. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for visiting with me in my office at almost exactly the moment that you were talking to me. The Department of Justice was firing more than a dozen lawyers who worked with the special counsel, Jack Smith, simply because they were involved in that case. You've committed that the FBI will not be politicized. So here's your first test. Will you commit that you will not tolerate the firing of the FBI agents who worked with the special counsel's office on these investigations?
Senator, I appreciate the time to visit with you.
It is a yes or no answer, and it is your first test.
Senator, every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not going to accept that answer, because if you can't commit that those FBI agents will be protected from political retribution, we can't accept you as FBI director.
All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution.
Those individuals deserve to be protected from Trump retribution. That was your first test. You failed it.
He just said
saying
all
that
FBI employees
is
should be
a
protected.
that is a test of professional diligence, because it is the measure of whether you will stand up and say no to the president if he gives you an unlawful or illegal order. Let me turn to the J6 choir. You know who the J6 prison choir is, don't you?
It's been referenced earlier, yes.
And you know about the song that, in fact, you produced, you promoted, and you used to, as you put it, raise awareness and support for the political prisoners still locked in jail. Those J6 choir, were they political prisoners?
I don't know everyone in the J6 choir.
That's what you said.
That's
correct?
not how I read it, Senator.
This is your tweet. That's your whole statement.
Well, I'm
You
reading
won't
it now.
stand behind your own statements made in tweets, countless of them. As a matter of fact, as you put it to Steve Bannon on his show, then we went into a studio and recorded it, mastered it, digitized it, and put it as a song, now releasing it exclusively in the War Room. That was the J6 prison choir song.
And all proceeds were given away to charity to help families
And you
in
called
need.
them political prisoners. Julian Cater, do you know what he did?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, he's one of the J6 prison choir.
You seem to know more about it than I
Identified
do.
in a court filing. And you're saying now you don't know who he is? You glorified him and the rest of that choir? He's the one who sprayed U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with pepper spray. Officer Sicknick died the next day. Cater admitted his violence. He pleaded guilty to assaulting assaulting a political officer, a police officer. Do you believe that Julian Cater was a political prisoner?
Senator, I'm not familiar with this case. You seem to know a lot more about it than I do. And as I've said repeatedly, I will always utilize my resources to help Americans in need, which is what I was trying to do here. And I've never once advocated for political violence or violence against law enforcement.
Ryan Nichols.
All right, we'll continue.
Ryan Nichols.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show as we cover Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and a White House briefing on the plane crash. All breaking news happening right here on the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A lot of news coming out of Washington, D.C. this morning. You're going to want to stick through all of this with 710K and US. You have the plane crash. You have the president's response. You have Tulsi Gabbard's hearing. You have Kash Patel's hearing. You have Robert F. Kennedy's continuation of his hearing. All happening today. The very best news, comment, analysis is going to take place on 710K and US. New York Times reporting now that President Trump is now suggesting that the U.S. Army helicopter was at fault in the crash, saying that while the pilots of the plane were doing everything right, the helicopter that struck it was, quote, going at an angle that was unbelievably bad, unquote. Also blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion for part of the problems. But to me, Bill, that seems like a leap because I don't know anything about the FAA flight attendant flight.
I mean, it was a Blackhawk helicopter, so it's obviously a minority helicopter. So that's got to be it. It's obviously the weird minority copters. If it was a white helicopter, it'd be okay. But,
so,
just
but
saying.
Could FAA's DEI policies have led to this? We're going to have all of that to talk tomorrow. Plus, Billy and I are at South Chamber of Commerce breakfast, economic forecast breakfast tomorrow.
Putting us in with the business people. I understand you, but me?
Billy, you going to wear a suit tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll wear a suit, a clown suit. That's about the best I'll do. I'll wear one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes. That's the kind of suit I'll wear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all of this will continue to cover, so stick with 710K in US and check in with us tomorrow morning. If you missed any of the show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. Until then, you've been listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.